Imagine a time when caravan routes crossed vast deserts, linking distant cultures, kingdoms, and ideas. Merchants, scholars, and travelers carried not only goods but also knowledge that moved from one civilization to another. In the centuries following the rise of Islam, a remarkable transformation took place. New cities became centers of learning, science, philosophy, and culture. Scholars preserved ancient knowledge, built upon it, and made discoveries that would influence the world for generations. Known today as the Islamic Golden Age, this era produced major advances in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, and literature, leaving a legacy that extended far beyond its own time. In this documentary, we will explore the rise of this extraordinary age, the people who shaped it, and its lasting impact on history. And as we look back on this period of discovery, perhaps we should ask, what is the true measure of a civilization's greatness? The power it holds in its own time, or the knowledge it passes on to the future? The desert winds whispered of change across the vast Umayyad Caliphate, an empire stretching from the Atlantic to the Indus. For nearly a century, the Umayyads had ruled from Damascus. Built upon conquest and an Arab-centric aristocracy, many felt they had strayed from the egalitarian ideals of early Islam, their lavish courts contrasting sharply with the Prophet's legacy. The Umayyads often privileged Arab Muslims over non-Arab converts, the Mawali who found themselves relegated to second-class status, burdened by taxes and excluded from power. This simmering resentment fueled a new revolution. Far to the east, in Khorasan, the black banners of the Abbasids began to unfurl. This new movement vowed to restore the true spirit of Islam, bring justice to the oppressed, and lead the faithful back to righteousness. They were a revolutionary force, tapping into the deep-seated grievances of the Mawali and the Shia, who felt marginalized by the Umayyad establishment. The Abbasids claimed direct lineage from Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, an uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, lending their cause religious legitimacy. They positioned themselves as champions of a universal Islam, where piety, not pedigree, determined standing. Their message resonated profoundly with those alienated by the perceived decadence and ethnic biases of the Umayyads. The movement gained momentum through a meticulous and clandestine network of propagandists and agents. These individuals traveled across the caliphate, subtly spreading the Abbasid message, recruiting followers, and organizing cells of resistance. They spoke of a return to the purity of the early Islamic community, promising a more equitable society and a caliphate embodying justice and piety. This ideological groundwork prepared the populace for upheaval, a unifying cry that brought together diverse elements: discontented Arabs, ambitious Persians, and disenfranchised Mawali, all yearning for a new order. By 747, the stage was set for open rebellion. Abu Muslim al-Khurasani, a brilliant and charismatic general, emerged as the military architect of the Abbasid revolution. Under his command, the black banners of the Abbasids rose overtly in Khorasan, signaling the beginning of a brutal civil war. Umayyad forces found themselves facing an enemy fueled by religious fervor and injustice. The Abbasid armies, often outnumbered, fought with a ferocity born of conviction, their ranks swelling with new recruits eager to overthrow the old regime. The conflict was devastating, tearing through the heart of the Islamic world. Battles raged across Persia and Mesopotamia, each clash a testament to the ideological chasm between the dynasties. The Umayyad caliphs, weakened by internal dissent and the growing perception of their illegitimacy, struggled to maintain control. Their traditional power base in Syria became increasingly isolated as the Abbasid tide swept westward. The revolutionary armies, driven by their vision of a new caliphate, systematically dismantled Umayyad strongholds. The decisive moment arrived with the Battle of the Zab River in 750. Here, Abbasid forces under Abdallah ibn Ali met the main Umayyad army led by Caliph Marwan II. The battle was fierce and bloody. Ultimately, the Abbasids emerged victorious, their black banners triumphant. Marwan II fled, pursued relentlessly, and was eventually hunted down and killed in Egypt. His death marked the definitive end of the Umayyad Caliphate as a unified power. With the Umayyad dynasty effectively extinguished, the Abbasids moved swiftly to consolidate power. Abu al-Abbas al-Safa, the great-grandson of Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, was proclaimed the first Abbasid caliph. His ascension marked a monumental shift in the political landscape of the Islamic world. The center of power moved eastward, away from Damascus and towards the historical heartlands of Mesopotamia. This geographical shift was more than just a change of address. It signaled a profound reorientation of the caliphate's cultural and administrative identity. The Abbasids, keenly aware of the diverse elements that had propelled them to power, immediately began to implement policies reflecting their universalist vision. They embraced the Mawali asterisk, granting them equal status and opportunities, integrating them into the new administration. Persians in particular played an increasingly prominent role, bringing sophisticated administrative techniques and a rich cultural heritage that would profoundly shape the Abbasid era. This inclusivity, a stark contrast to the Umayyads' Arab-centric policies, was a key factor in the stability and prosperity that would follow. The early Abbasid caliphs, while ruthless in suppressing lingering Umayyad resistance, also understood the importance of legitimacy and patronage. They positioned themselves as pious guardians of Islam, committed to justice and the welfare of their subjects. They began to invest in infrastructure, scholarship and culture, laying the groundwork for an era of unprecedented intellectual and artistic flourishing. The revolutionary spark had ignited a new flame, one that would burn brightly for centuries, illuminating a path towards a golden age of learning and innovation. The shift from the Umayyads' military might to the Abbasids' focus on cultural and intellectual dominance was not instantaneous, but the seeds were sown in these tumultuous early years, as the black banners swept away the old order and ushered in a new dawn for the Islamic world. The new caliphate, forged in the fires of revolution, was poised to become a beacon of knowledge and civilization, its influence radiating across continents. The Abbasids' strategic move to Baghdad, a newly constructed city on the Tigris River, symbolized their break from the Damascus-centric Umayyad past and their embrace of a more cosmopolitan, intellectually vibrant future. This burgeoning metropolis, founded in 762 CE by Caliph al-Mansur, was not merely a political capital. It was conceived as a global hub, a crossroads of trade routes and intellectual currents. Its circular design, a marvel of urban planning, reflected a desire for order and a new beginning. Within its walls, Persian administrative traditions blended with Arab governance, and the intellectual legacies of Greece, India, and Persia found fertile ground for synthesis and innovation. The city quickly became a magnet for scholars, artists, and merchants from across the known world, transforming into the largest and wealthiest city of its era, a true testament to the Abbasids' vision. The early Abbasid caliphs, in particular, understood the immense power of knowledge and actively promoted its pursuit. They established institutions like the House of Wisdom, or Bayt al-Hikmah in Baghdad, which was far more than a library. It was an academy, a translation institute, and a research center. Here, scholars from diverse backgrounds and faiths collaborated on translating a vast array of Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic. This monumental translation movement was not a mere act of preservation. It was an active engagement with existing knowledge, a critical examination, and often an expansion upon it. Works of Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, Galen, and Hippocrates, to name just a few, were meticulously rendered into Arabic, making them accessible to a new generation of Muslim thinkers. This intellectual assimilation was a foundational step, allowing Abbasid scholars to build upon the achievements of antiquity rather than simply replicating them. Beyond translation, the Abbasids fostered an environment of original inquiry and scientific advancement. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy flourished under their patronage. Al-Khwarizmi, for instance, a Persian mathematician working in the House of Wisdom, developed algebra, a concept so fundamental to modern mathematics that its very name is derived from his book, Kitab al-Jabr wa al-Muqabala. His work also introduced Hindu-Arabic numerals, including the concept of zero, to the Western world, revolutionizing calculation and science. In astronomy, observatories were established, and meticulous observations led to more accurate star charts and a deeper understanding of planetary motion. Figures like al-Battani refined astronomical instruments and calculations, influencing later European astronomers. Medicine, too, saw remarkable progress. Physicians like al-Razi, known in the West as Rhazes, authored comprehensive medical encyclopedias and made groundbreaking observations about diseases like smallpox and measles. He emphasized clinical observation and experimentation, a departure from purely theoretical approaches. Ibn Sina, or Avicenna, whose canon of medicine remained a standard medical text in Europe for centuries, synthesized Greek, Indian, and Islamic medical knowledge, contributing significantly to pharmacology and surgical techniques. The establishment of hospitals, complete with wards, pharmacies, and even medical schools, showcased the practical application of this burgeoning medical knowledge and the Abbasids' commitment to public welfare. This intellectual blossoming was not confined to the hard sciences. Philosophy and theology also underwent significant development. Muslim thinkers grappled with the philosophical traditions of Greece, attempting to reconcile reason with revelation. Al-Farabi and Ibn Rushd, Averroes, engaged deeply with Aristotelian philosophy, offering commentaries and interpretations that profoundly influenced both Islamic and Western thought. Their work contributed to a rich intellectual discourse on logic, metaphysics, and ethics, shaping the intellectual landscape for centuries. The Abbasid commitment to learning was further exemplified by their extensive network of libraries and schools. Beyond the House of Wisdom, numerous private and public libraries housed vast collections of manuscripts, making knowledge widely accessible. Mosques often served as centers of learning, with scholars holding lectures and discussions. The development of paper manufacturing, learned from the Chinese, played a crucial role in this dissemination of knowledge, making books more affordable and abundant than ever before. This widespread availability of written material fueled a culture of literacy and scholarship, extending intellectual pursuits beyond the elite. Yet, this golden age was not solely about abstract knowledge. It was also about cultural synthesis and artistic expression. Persian artistic traditions, particularly in calligraphy, miniature painting, and architecture, merged with Arab and Byzantine influences to create a distinct Islamic aesthetic. The intricate geometric patterns, floral motifs, and calligraphic inscriptions that adorn Abbasid mosques and palaces speak to a sophisticated artistic sensibility. Poetry too reached new heights, with figures like Abu Nuwas producing lyrical and often humorous verses that captured the spirit of the age. Music, while sometimes viewed with suspicion by stricter religious scholars, also flourished, with new instruments and theoretical frameworks emerging. The economic prosperity of the Abbasid Caliphate provided the necessary foundation for this cultural and intellectual efflorescence. Control over vast trade routes, from the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean, brought immense wealth into the empire. Baghdad, as a central entrepot, facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. The development of sophisticated financial instruments, like the sack, checks, and a unified currency further streamlined commerce and contributed to a vibrant urban economy. This economic stability allowed for the patronage of scholars, artists, and craftsmen, creating a virtuous cycle where wealth fueled innovation, which in turn contributed to further prosperity. The Abbasids' embrace of diverse peoples and cultures, allowing for the integration of Persian, Turkic, and other ethnic groups into the administrative and intellectual fabric of the empire, also played a crucial role. This inclusivity fostered a rich tapestry of perspectives and talents, all contributing to the vibrant intellectual and cultural life of the Caliphate. The revolutionary fervor of the early Abbasids may have subsided, but its legacy was a dynamic and enduring commitment to the pursuit of knowledge and the cultivation of a truly global civilization. The late antique world of the 6th century stretched across vast and ancient lands, a mosaic of empires and independent peoples, each with their own intricate histories and evolving destinies. To the west, the Roman and Byzantine empires, though fractured, still commanded the Mediterranean, their legions and laws shaping the destinies of millions from Constantinople to the far reaches of North Africa. Their cities pulsed with the echoes of classical thought. Their churches resonated with the unfolding doctrines of a new faith. Eastward, beyond the Fertile Crescent, lay the formidable Sassanid dynasty of Persia, a resurgent power whose monumental architecture and sophisticated court culture rivaled any in the known world. Their empire, heirs to Cyrus and Darius, held sway over territories reaching deep into Central Asia, a bastion of Zoroastrianism and a crucial player in the geopolitical chessboard of the era. Between these titanic powers, a land of stark beauty and profound heritage lay largely undefined by the sweeping imperial ambitions of its neighbors, the Arabian Peninsula. Here the desert winds sculpted dunes into ever-shifting landscapes, and ancient trade routes, etched by millennia of camel caravans, crisscrossed the empty miles between oases. This was a world of oral traditions, where poets were revered as living libraries, their verses preserving not just stories and genealogies, but the collective wisdom, humor, and memory of their tribes. The rhythmic clang of camel bells, the whisper of sand against rock, the shimmering heat haze distorting the horizon. These were the sensory realities of a land often perceived as isolated, yet in truth it was deeply connected. Merchants from the Arabian Peninsula ventured to India, to Byzantium and beyond, carrying spices, incense and textiles, but also returning with tales, ideas and innovations, weaving their homeland into the broader tapestry of global commerce and culture. Across this ancient world, the great intellectual traditions of antiquity existed not in centralized, shining academies, but in scattered forms, fragile and often precarious. Greek philosophy, with its rigorous logic and metaphysical inquiries, resonated in the academies of Alexandria and the monasteries of Syria, preserved and debated by scholars who often worked in isolation. Persian astronomy, honed by centuries of observation and mathematical precision, informed the calendars and astrological predictions of the Sassanid court. Indian mathematics, with its revolutionary concept of zero and the decimal system, slowly diffused westward through trade networks, carried by merchants and savants alike. The accumulated medical knowledge of Alexandria, a synthesis of Egyptian, Greek and other traditions, could be found in the hands of physicians practicing from Cordoba to Ctesiphon. Knowledge in this era was a delicate thing, often preserved in crumbling papyri and parchment manuscripts, translated and retranslated across linguistic and cultural divides, carried across borders by intrepid merchants, dedicated monks and wandering scholars. It rarely found a permanent, unified home, existing instead as a constellation of scattered brilliance, awaiting some force to gather and amplify its light. The world, without fully realizing it, was poised on the precipice of a profound intellectual gathering. The Arabian Peninsula itself, despite its harsh landscapes, was a place of vibrant life and complex social structures. Its tribal societies, bound by intricate codes of honor and kinship, navigated a world where loyalty and reputation were paramount. Poets, as mentioned, were not mere entertainers, they were chroniclers, satirists and diplomats, their words capable of igniting wars or forging peace. The merchants of Mecca and Medina, skilled navigators of both desert and sea, travelled as far as the bustling markets of India and the opulent courts of Byzantium, their caravans returning laden not only with goods but with new perspectives and foreign concepts. Mecca especially stood as a pivotal centre. Before the advent of Islam, it was already a renowned pilgrimage site, drawing dozens of tribes to its sacred Kaaba. This cuboid structure, housing various idols and symbols, served as a neutral ground where even long-standing feuds were temporarily suspended, allowing for uninterrupted trade and worship. It was a testament to the peninsula's inherent cosmopolitanism, a place where diverse peoples converged, exchanging not just commodities but also stories, beliefs, and nascent ideas. This was a world already engaged in a subtle but profound process of cultural and commercial exchange, unconsciously laying the groundwork for something truly extraordinary. And so, in this intricate tapestry of empires, traditions, and burgeoning trade, in the heart of Mecca lived a young man. He was a merchant, known for his integrity and thoughtful demeanor, a quiet observer of the world around him. He walked the dusty streets of his city, conversed with travelers from distant lands, and meditated in the solitude of the desert caves. His world was rich with ancient echoes and vibrant with contemporary currents, a place of both profound continuity and subtle transformation. Soon, this man would receive a revelation, a message that would not merely alter the course of his life, but would fundamentally reshape the human experience, gathering the scattered threads of the late antique world and weaving them into a civilization of unprecedented scope and brilliance. But that moment was yet to come. For now, the world simply existed as it was, complex and beautiful, waiting in the quiet certainty of its own unfolding history. The air in Mecca, heavy with the scent of spices and the murmur of commerce, carried whispers of ancient gods and tribal loyalties. It was a world where lineage dictated much, where the strength of one's clan was often the measure of one's worth. Yet, beneath this seemingly immutable surface, currents of change were stirring. The great empires of Byzantium and Persia, though formidable, were locked in a perpetual, exhausting struggle, their peripheries often neglected, creating vacuums of power and influence that smaller, more agile entities could exploit. Trade routes, the lifeblood of the ancient world, were shifting, and with them the fortunes of cities and peoples. Mecca, strategically positioned at the crossroads of these routes, was a vibrant hub, a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and goods. Here, the merchant caravans from Yemen mingled with those from Syria, bringing not just silks and frankincense, but also stories, philosophies, and religious concepts from distant lands. The young man, Muhammad, was acutely aware of these dynamics. His travels as a merchant had exposed him to the diverse tapestry of beliefs and customs that stretched across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. He had encountered Christians, Jews, and adherents of various indigenous faiths, each with their own understanding of the divine and their own moral codes. This exposure, coupled with his innate contemplative nature, led him to question the prevailing polytheism of his own society, the worship of numerous idols that adorned the Kaaba, the ancient sanctuary at the heart of Mecca. He saw the social inequalities, the injustices faced by the poor and the marginalized, the arbitrary nature of tribal feuds, and felt a profound yearning for something more unifying, more just, more transcendent. His retreats to the cave of Hira, high above Mecca, were not merely escapes from the bustling city, but a quest for spiritual clarity, a seeking of truth in the vast, silent embrace of the desert. It was in this crucible of personal introspection and societal observation that the first revelation descended. The traditional accounts describe a powerful, overwhelming experience, a direct communication from the divine. The message was clear, uncompromising, and revolutionary. There is only one God, Allah, and Muhammad was his messenger. This was not merely a theological pronouncement, it was a radical social and ethical program. It challenged the very foundations of Meccan society, which was built on idol worship, tribal pride, and a hierarchical social structure. The concept of a single, all-powerful God, to whom all were equal in devotion, directly undermined the authority of the powerful Meccan elite, who derived their status from their association with the various deities. The initial years of Muhammad's prophethood were marked by quiet, clandestine preaching. He gathered around him a small but devoted band of followers, drawn from various strata of Meccan society: his wife Khadija, his cousin Ali, his close friend Abu Bakr, and others who felt the resonance of his message. These early Muslims, as they came to be known, found solace and strength in the new faith, a sense of belonging and purpose that transcended their tribal affiliations. They were taught to worship Allah alone, to live with integrity, to care for the poor and the needy, and to strive for justice. These were not abstract ideals. They were practical injunctions that demanded a radical reorientation of their lives. However, as the message spread and the number of converts grew, so too did the opposition from the Meccan establishment. They saw Muhammad's teachings as a direct threat to their economic interests, particularly the pilgrimage trade centered around the Kaaba and its idols, and to their social order. Persecution began, initially in the form of ridicule and harassment, but escalating to economic boycotts and physical violence. The early Muslims endured immense hardship, demonstrating a steadfastness born of their profound conviction. They were a testament to the transformative power of faith, choosing spiritual truth over worldly comfort and security. This period of intense struggle forged a strong sense of community and shared purpose among the believers, laying the groundwork for a movement that would eventually transcend its humble beginnings. The seeds of a new civilization were being sown in the harsh, unyielding soil of persecution, nurtured by unwavering belief and an unshakable commitment to a revolutionary vision. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the foundations were now laid, firm and unyielding, ready to withstand the storms of history. The year 622 CE marked a pivotal turning point, as the mounting persecution in Mecca forced Muhammad and his followers to undertake the Hijra, a migration to the oasis town of Yathrib, soon to be known as Medina. This was more than a mere change of residence. It was a profound act of social and political reimagining. In Medina, Muhammad was not just a spiritual leader, but a statesman, tasked with forging a unified community from disparate tribes, including those of Jewish faith, and establishing a new social order based on the principles of Islam. The Constitution of Medina, a foundational document, laid out rights and responsibilities, emphasizing justice, mutual defense, and the equality of believers, transcending the old tribal loyalties that had long defined Arabian society. This innovative approach offered a compelling alternative to the constant feuding and rigid hierarchies of the pre-Islamic era, presenting a vision of a community bound not by bloodline but by shared faith and a common purpose. Within this nascent community, the teachings of Islam blossomed, emphasizing the absolute oneness of God, Tawhid, and the importance of prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage. The message resonated deeply, particularly among those marginalized by the old order, offering dignity and a path to salvation. It was a call to ethical living, to compassion, and to the establishment of a just society where the strong did not oppress the weak. The early Muslim community in Medina became a living laboratory for these ideals, demonstrating that a society built on faith, rather than lineage or wealth, could not only survive but thrive. This period saw the consolidation of Islamic practices and the establishment of institutions that would form the bedrock of a new civilization. Following the Prophet Muhammad's passing in 632 CE, the nascent Muslim community faced the profound challenge of succession and the task of preserving the unity he had painstakingly forged. The period of the Rashidun Caliphate, meaning rightly guided caliphs, saw the leadership of four close companions of the Prophet: Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Their reigns were characterized by both remarkable expansion and internal struggles that would shape the future trajectory of Islam. Abu Bakr quickly moved to consolidate the Muslim community, quelling internal dissent and establishing the principle of the Caliph as the successor to the Prophet's political and administrative authority. Under Umar, the second Caliph, the expansion of the Islamic State truly burst upon the world stage with astonishing speed. Within a single decade, Arab armies, fueled by religious conviction and a strategic brilliance, swept across the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. They decisively defeated the formidable Sassanid Persian Empire, absorbing its vast territories into the burgeoning caliphate, and simultaneously wrested significant lands from the Byzantine Empire, including Syria, Palestine, and Egypt. This was not merely a story of military conquest, it was a complex historical phenomenon driven by a confluence of factors. The Byzantine and Sassanid empires, weary from centuries of intermittent warfare, were economically exhausted and politically unstable, their populations often alienated by heavy taxation and religious persecution. The message of Islam, with its emphasis on justice, a simpler faith, and often more favorable taxation policies for conquered peoples, held a genuine appeal. The new rulers did not erase what they found, but often absorbed existing administrative structures, learned from the sophisticated cultures they encountered, and gradually transformed them. The administrative challenges of governing such a rapidly expanding empire were immense, and the Rashidun Caliphs established foundational structures for taxation, governance, and justice that would endure for centuries. However, the question of succession, particularly after the assassinations of Uthman and Ali, led to deep and lasting divisions within the Muslim community, giving rise to the Sunni and Shia branches of Islam. These internal debates about authority and legitimacy were not merely theological, they had profound political implications, demonstrating that even in its earliest days, Islamic civilization grappled with profound questions of governance and identity. The diverse peoples and cultures now under Muslim rule, Arabs, Persians, Copts, Syrians, and many others, began to coalesce, bringing their own rich traditions and knowledge to this new dynamic civilization. As the Rashidun Caliphate concluded, a new era dawned with the establishment of the Umayyad Caliphate. Muawiyah, a shrewd and capable governor, moved the capital from Medina to Damascus, transforming the caliphate into a more centralized imperial state. This shift marked a significant transition, reflecting a greater embrace of existing imperial traditions. The cosmopolitan culture of Syria, with its Hellenistic and Byzantine influences, began to blend with the spiritual ideals of early Islam and the administrative prowess inherited from the conquered territories. This new synthesis, though sometimes generating tensions between the spiritual purity of early Islam and the pragmatic demands of empire, laid the groundwork for a civilization of extraordinary complexity and dynamism. The Umayyads, with their grand mosques, administrative innovations, and continued expansion, built upon the foundations laid by their predecessors, setting the stage for even greater cultural and intellectual flourishing. When the Rashidun Caliphate concluded, a new era dawned with the establishment of the Umayyad Caliphate. Muawiyah, a shrewd and capable governor, moved the capital from Medina to Damascus, transforming the caliphate into a more centralized imperial state. This shift marked a significant transition, reflecting a greater embrace of existing imperial traditions. The cosmopolitan culture of Syria, with its Hellenistic and Byzantine influences, began to blend with the spiritual ideals of early Islam and the administrative prowess inherited from the conquered territories. This new synthesis, though sometimes generating tensions between the spiritual purity of early Islam and the pragmatic demands of empire, laid the groundwork for a civilization of extraordinary complexity and dynamism. The Umayyads, with their grand mosques, administrative innovations, and continued expansion, built upon the foundations laid by their predecessors, setting the stage for even greater cultural and intellectual flourishing. The Umayyad era, while often viewed through the lens of political consolidation and military expansion, was also a period of profound cultural incubation. The administrative machinery inherited from the Byzantines and Sasanians, particularly in areas like taxation, coinage, and bureaucracy, was not simply adopted but adapted and integrated into an Islamic framework. For instance, the Byzantine monetary system, initially retained, gradually gave way to purely Islamic coinage, devoid of human figures, bearing instead Arabic inscriptions of religious significance. This was not merely an aesthetic choice but a powerful declaration of a distinct Islamic sovereignty and identity, asserting a new cultural paradigm across the vast territories under their control. The language of administration, initially Greek and Pahlavi in many regions, slowly but surely transitioned to Arabic, unifying the diverse populations under a common linguistic and religious banner. This linguistic shift was a monumental undertaking, requiring the translation of countless documents and the training of a new generation of administrators fluent in the new official language, further cementing Arabic's role as the lingua franca of the burgeoning empire. The architectural achievements of the Umayyads stand as enduring testaments to their ambition and vision. The Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, completed under Abd al-Malik, is perhaps the most iconic example. Its Byzantine mosaics and Sasanian-influenced dome, combined with Arabic calligraphy, represent a spectacular fusion of artistic traditions, creating a wholly new architectural language. This structure was not just a place of worship, it was a political statement, asserting Islamic presence and authority in a city sacred to all Abrahamic faiths. Similarly, the Great Mosque of Damascus, built on the site of a Roman temple and later a Christian basilica, showcased an even grander scale of transformation. Its vast courtyard, towering minarets, and intricate mosaic work depicting lush landscapes and palatial scenes reflected the wealth and power of the caliphate, while simultaneously offering a space for communal prayer and social gathering that transcended mere religious function. These architectural marvels were not isolated incidents, but part of a broader pattern of urban development, with new cities like Kairouan in North Africa and Wasit in Iraq being founded, serving as administrative centers, military garrisons, and hubs of trade, further accelerating the process of cultural exchange and integration. Beyond the visible grandeur, the Umayyad period fostered an environment where early Islamic scholarship began to take root. The collection and standardization of the Quran, a process initiated during the Rashidun period, continued to gain momentum, ensuring the preservation of the holy text. The nascent fields of Islamic law, hadith studies, and Arabic grammar began to emerge, driven by the need to understand and interpret the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad in a rapidly expanding and diverse empire. Scholars traveled extensively, gathering traditions and teachings, laying the groundwork for the more systematic intellectual endeavors of the later Abbasid era. While not yet the full flowering of the Golden Age, this was a crucial foundational period where the intellectual tools and methodologies for future scholarly pursuits were being forged. The very act of governing such a vast and diverse empire, with its array of legal traditions and social customs, necessitated a sophisticated approach to law and administration, prompting the development of early jurisprudence and administrative theory. However, this period was not without its internal contradictions and challenges. The tension between the Arab elite and the non-Arab converts, or Mawali, was a persistent source of friction. Despite their conversion to Islam, the Mawali often faced social and economic discrimination, being treated as second-class citizens and subjected to higher taxes. This created a deep-seated resentment that would eventually contribute to the downfall of the Umayyad dynasty. Furthermore, the succession system, which had evolved from an elective process to a hereditary one, often led to internal feuds and civil wars, further destabilizing the caliphate. The tragic events of Karbala, where the Prophet's grandson Hussein was martyred, became a defining moment in Islamic history, solidifying the schism between Sunni and Shia Islam, and casting a long shadow over the legitimacy of Umayyad rule in the eyes of many. These internal struggles, though often violent, also spurred intellectual and theological debates, as different factions sought to articulate their understanding of legitimate leadership and Islamic governance, thereby contributing to the rich tapestry of Islamic thought. The Umayyads, despite their successes in empire building and cultural synthesis, ultimately succumbed to these internal pressures paving the way for a new dynasty and a new chapter in Islamic history. The Umayyad Caliphate was an empire of staggering proportions, a political and cultural entity that stretched its vast tendrils from the sun-drenched valleys of Spain in the west, across the arid plains of North Africa, through the ancient lands of Egypt and Syria, past the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, over the rugged mountain passes of Persia, and deep into the expansive steppes of Central Asia, touching the frontiers of India and China. It was a civilization not merely as a precursor to something greater, but as a remarkable achievement in its own right, a colossal, functioning network that connected distant peoples and facilitated an extraordinary exchange of goods, individuals and ideas on a scale previously unimaginable. One could stand amidst the fragrant olive groves of Syria, then journey eastward to the venerable cities of Mesopotamia, where ancient rivers nourished grand civilizations, before ascending the challenging mountain passes of Persia. Further east, the vast steppes of Central Asia beckoned, while to the west, the relentless deserts of North Africa unfolded, ultimately yielding to the verdant, rolling hills and valleys of Spain. Imagine a merchant in the bustling souks of Damascus, whose wares could, in theory, find their way to a counterpart in the distant markets of Samarkand, or whose goods might be exchanged with a trader in the sophisticated urban centers of Cordoba. This was a singular, interconnected world, woven together by a shared faith, a common language that facilitated communication across vast distances, and intricate commercial networks that crisscrossed continents, fostering an extraordinary diversity of cultures under one imperial canopy. Within this expansive domain, intellectual and cultural life began to blossom, laying the groundwork for future advancements long before the Abbasid ascendance. Even in these earlier days, the seeds of translation movements were being sown. Umayyad rulers, recognizing the value of knowledge, extended their patronage to scholars. In Syria, Greek medical texts, repositories of ancient wisdom, were meticulously translated into Arabic, preserving and disseminating knowledge that might otherwise have been lost to time. Persian administrative traditions, honed over centuries of imperial governance, were absorbed and integrated into the burgeoning bureaucracy of the Caliphate, providing a sophisticated framework for managing such a vast empire. From the distant Indian subcontinent, through the bustling trade routes that connected it to the Arab world, the revolutionary concept of Indian numerals began its slow, inexorable journey westward, destined to transform mathematics and accounting across the globe. These were not mere isolated incidents, but the quiet, persistent germination of ideas, the planting of seeds that, though unnoticed at the time, would eventually yield the magnificent harvest of the Islamic Golden Age. Yet, this grand edifice was not without its deep-seated fissures and internal contradictions. A pervasive preference for Arab Muslims over their non-Arab counterparts, the *Mawali*, created profound resentments. Populations newly converted to Islam, whether Persian, Berber, or from other diverse ethnic groups, frequently found themselves relegated to the status of second-class citizens within the empire, often bearing heavier tax burdens and facing social discrimination. These grievances, simmering beneath the surface, gradually accumulated, finding expression in various religious and political movements that began to openly challenge the legitimacy of Umayyad rule. The eastern provinces, particularly Khurasan and Transoxiana, became fertile ground for this dissent, transforming into centers of opposition that would eventually ignite the revolution destined to bring down the Umayyad dynasty. The black banners of the Abbasids, a stark visual contrast to the white banners of the Umayyads, began to gather momentum in these distant lands, symbolizing a revolutionary force seeking to overturn the established order. Even as the Umayyad dynasty faced its terminal decline in the east, a remarkable and enduring legacy was taking root in the far west. Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. Here, Umayyad rulers, having escaped the Abbasid purge, established a civilization of breathtaking sophistication and cultural brilliance. This was a society where scholarship and culture would flourish for centuries, producing its own extraordinary flowering of intellectual achievement. The libraries of Cordoba, the architectural marvels, the advancements in science and philosophy, all attested to a vibrant, dynamic society. It was a testament to the vast, interconnected nature of this world, a world where the echoes of a crumbling empire in one corner could simultaneously give birth to a new cultural zenith in another, leaving one to ponder the profound shifts and transformations that were about to sweep across the entire Islamic realm. In distant lands, black banners rose, symbolizing a revolutionary force seeking to overturn the established order. Even as the Umayyad dynasty faced its terminal decline in the east, a remarkable and enduring legacy was taking root in the far west, Al-Andalus, Islamic Spain. Here, Umayyad rulers, having escaped the Abbasid purge, established a civilization of breathtaking sophistication and cultural brilliance. This was a society where scholarship and culture would flourish for centuries, producing its own extraordinary flowering of intellectual achievement. The libraries of Córdoba, the architectural marvels, the advancements in science and philosophy, all attested to a vibrant, dynamic society. It was a testament to the vast, interconnected nature of this world, a world where the echoes of a crumbling empire in one corner could simultaneously give birth to a new cultural zenith in another, leaving one to ponder the profound shifts and transformations that were about to sweep across the entire Islamic realm. The intellectual efflorescence of Al-Andalus was not merely a continuation of previous traditions, it was a synthesis, a crucible where Islamic scholarship met and often surpassed the intellectual achievements of late antiquity, enriched by influences from across the Mediterranean and beyond. Córdoba, the jewel of Al-Andalus, became a beacon of learning, often described as the intellectual capital of Europe during this period. Its great mosque, a marvel of architectural innovation and aesthetic beauty, was not just a place of worship, but a symbol of the city's grandeur and its commitment to artistic expression. Around it, countless schools, libraries, and academies sprang up, drawing scholars, poets, and scientists from various backgrounds. The library of Al-Hakam II, for instance, was said to contain hundreds of thousands of volumes, a collection far exceeding anything available in contemporary Christian Europe. This vast repository of knowledge encompassed works on philosophy, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and literature, many of which were original contributions by Andalusian thinkers. Among the towering figures of this era was Ibn Rushd, known to the Latin West as Averroes, a polymath whose commentaries on Aristotle profoundly influenced medieval European scholasticism. His rigorous approach to logic and his emphasis on the compatibility of faith and reason sparked debates that resonated for centuries. Similarly, Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher and physician born in Córdoba, produced seminal works that shaped Jewish thought and medical practice, demonstrating the vibrant interfaith intellectual exchange that characterized much of Andalusian society. The medical schools of Al-Andalus were particularly advanced, with physicians like Abu al-Qasim al-Zaharoui or Abul Qasis pioneering surgical techniques and instruments that would be adopted across Europe. His comprehensive medical encyclopedia, Al-Tasrif, became a standard textbook for centuries. Beyond the ivory towers of academia, the agricultural innovations of Al-Andalus transformed the landscape and the economy. Sophisticated irrigation systems, drawing on ancient Roman techniques but vastly improving upon them, allowed for the cultivation of new crops like oranges, lemons, sugarcane, and rice, which were then introduced to Europe. This agricultural revolution, coupled with advanced horticultural practices, led to unprecedented prosperity and a diverse, abundant food supply. The urban centers, like Córdoba, Seville, and Granada, were bustling metropolises with paved streets, public baths, and elaborate water systems, luxuries largely unknown in many parts of contemporary Europe. The cultural vibrancy extended to poetry and music, with new forms and styles emerging that blended Arabic, Persian, and indigenous Iberian elements. The Mawasha and Zayal, poetic forms characterized by their lyrical quality and often sung, captivated audiences and spread throughout the Islamic world. Musicians like Ziryab, a Persian polymath who arrived in Córdoba in the 9th century, revolutionized Andalusian music, introducing new instruments, melodies, and musical theories that laid the groundwork for future Spanish and North African musical traditions. His influence was so profound that he is often credited with establishing the first conservatory of music in Córdoba. This extraordinary period of cultural and intellectual flourishing was not without its complexities and challenges. The coexistence of Muslims, Christians, and Jews, while often characterized by periods of remarkable tolerance and collaboration, also experienced tensions and conflicts. Yet, the overall impression is one of a society that, for several centuries, managed to forge a dynamic and productive synthesis of diverse cultural and religious traditions. The legacy of Al-Andalus, therefore, is not merely a collection of isolated achievements, but a testament to the power of cultural exchange and intellectual curiosity in fostering a truly golden age. It stands as a powerful counter-narrative to simplistic notions of civilizational clash, instead highlighting the profound and often symbiotic relationships that can emerge when different cultures interact and learn from one another. The echoes of its brilliance would continue to resonate long after its political fragmentation, influencing the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment in Europe, a testament to its enduring impact on global civilization. The fall of Granada in 1492 marked the end of this unique chapter, yet the architectural wonders, the literary masterpieces, and the scientific treatises continue to inspire and inform, reminding us of a time when the pursuit of knowledge and beauty transcended political and religious divides, creating a tapestry of human achievement unparalleled in its richness and complexity. A profound sense of unease settled over the eastern provinces of the Umayyad Caliphate in the mid-8th century. It was a mood born of accumulated grievance, a quiet but persistent spiritual longing for a more just and inclusive Islamic society, and an undercurrent of political ambition organizing itself in the shadows of the empire's vast eastern frontier. The revolutionary movement that ultimately burst forth from Khorasan was not an abstract political force, but a gathering of real people, each with their own deeply personal motivations. Merchants and farmers, many of whom had converted to Islam and paid their taxes faithfully, found themselves consistently excluded from the inner circles of Umayyad power, their voices unheard in Damascus. Religious scholars, their hearts heavy with the spiritual ideals of early Islam, believed that the Umayyads had strayed too far from the pious simplicity and egalitarian principles that had once defined the nascent faith. Meanwhile, Persian aristocrats, keenly resentful of Arab dominance, saw in the burgeoning Abbasid cause a rare opportunity to reclaim influence and secure their place within a new, more equitable order. Revolutions, in their essence, are always complex coalitions of disparate groups, each desiring different outcomes, yet united temporarily by a shared adversary. The black banners of the Abbasid movement began to spread across Khorasan in 747 CE, a powerful visual declaration under the leadership of Abu Muslim. These weren't merely symbols of political rebellion. They represented a profound statement about what Islamic civilization should truly embody: a vision of inclusivity, a cosmopolitan spirit, and an openness to the wisdom of all peoples. One can almost picture those dark banners, stark against the arid landscape, moving inexorably westward across the vast Persian plateau, gathering an ever-increasing tide of supporters, each one drawn by the promise of a new world. The fall of the Umayyads and the transfer of power to the Abbasids in 750 CE marked more than a mere change of dynasty. It signaled a genuine transformation in the very center of gravity of Islamic civilization. Power shifted decisively from Damascus, a city steeped in Mediterranean and Byzantine influences, to a new capital that would soon rise in the heartland of ancient Mesopotamia. This new seat of power would consciously draw upon the deep wells of Persian civilization that had been accumulating wisdom for millennia. This pivotal moment saw the Islamic world turn its face eastward, toward Persia, toward India, toward the accumulated knowledge of ancient civilizations, embracing a more diverse and intellectual future. It was Al-Mansur, the shrewd and visionary second Abbasid caliph, who would make the most consequential decision of this early period. He resolved to build an entirely new city, a capital designed from its very foundations to be the beating heart of this new kind of civilization. One can imagine Al-Mansur standing on the fertile banks of the Tigris River, his gaze sweeping across the flat Mesopotamian plain, envisioning a metropolis that had never existed before, a city that would become the crucible of a golden age. This vision was not merely one of grandeur, but of strategic necessity and ideological assertion. The Umayyad Caliphate, centered in Damascus, had fallen, its legitimacy questioned by many, especially those in the eastern provinces who felt marginalized by its Arab-centric policies. The Abbasids, claiming descent from the Prophet Muhammad's uncle, Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalibi, presented themselves as universal rulers, champions of justice and equality for all Muslims, regardless of their ethnic origin. Building a new capital, far from the Umayyad strongholds, was a powerful declaration of this new order, a physical manifestation of their break with the past and their embrace of a more inclusive future. Al-Mansur's choice of location for his new capital, Baghdad, was far from arbitrary. It lay at the crossroads of ancient trade routes, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, arteries of commerce and communication flowed closest together. This strategic position offered unparalleled access to agricultural wealth, facilitated trade with the East and West, and provided natural defenses. The area had a long history of human settlement, a testament to its fertility and strategic importance, even if no major city stood precisely on the chosen spot at that moment. The very name, Baghdad, itself held ancient echoes, possibly derived from Old Persian words meaning God-given or Garden of Dad. The construction began in 762 CE, a monumental undertaking that would draw resources and skilled labor from across the burgeoning empire. Al-Mansur, known for his meticulous planning and stern resolve, personally oversaw the initial stages, laying the foundation stone himself. He summoned engineers, architects, and artisans from distant lands, reflecting his desire to synthesize the best knowledge and techniques available. Accounts describe a meticulous planning process, with Al-Mansur reportedly sketching the city's layout in ashes on the ground, then using cotton dipped in naphtha to trace the lines, which were then filled with grain to visualize the scale, before finally digging the foundations. This level of detail underscores his commitment to creating a perfectly ordered and functional city. The city's design was revolutionary, a perfectly circular metropolis, earning it the moniker, the Round City. This circular form, unprecedented in urban planning of the era, was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was deeply symbolic and highly practical. At its very heart stood the Caliph's palace, the Golden Gate Palace, and the Grand Mosque, radiating outward in concentric rings. This layout visually reinforced the Caliph's absolute authority, placing him at the literal and symbolic center of the world. The outer walls, punctuated by 4 equidistant gates named after the major regions they faced, Kufa, Basra, Khurasan, and Damascus, controlled access and facilitated defense. These gates were not just entry points, they were gateways to the vast Abbasid dominion, funneling goods, people, and ideas into the vibrant heart of the empire. Between the inner and outer walls lay residential quarters, markets, and administrative buildings, all meticulously planned and allocated. The meticulous organization reflected a desire for order and efficiency, a stark contrast to the organically grown, often chaotic urban landscapes of many older cities. The streets were laid out in a radial pattern, connecting the central palace to the main gates, ensuring swift communication and movement within the city. This design allowed for both grand processional routes and efficient daily life, a testament to sophisticated urban planning for its time. The city was envisioned as a self-sufficient entity, with canals drawing water from the Tigris, providing irrigation and sanitation. The construction of Baghdad was not just an architectural feat, it was an economic stimulus on an unprecedented scale. Thousands of laborers, both free and enslaved, toiled under the Mesopotamian sun, shaping bricks, digging foundations, and erecting structures. The demand for materials, timber from distant forests, stone from quarries, and metals for ornamentation, fueled industries across the empire. Merchants flocked to the site, eager to capitalize on the burgeoning market, bringing goods and services to the massive workforce. This influx of capital and labor transformed the surrounding region, drawing people from diverse backgrounds and fostering a vibrant, multi-ethnic population from its very inception. As the city rose from the plains, it quickly became a magnet for scholars, poets, philosophers, and artists. Al-Mansur and subsequent Abbasid caliphs actively encouraged intellectual pursuits, understanding that a strong empire required not just military might, but also cultural and intellectual prowess. They established libraries, academies, and translation centers, laying the groundwork for what would become the House of Wisdom. This deliberate patronage of knowledge was a cornerstone of the Abbasid project, distinguishing their rule from previous dynasties. Baghdad was not merely a political capital. It was designed to be an intellectual and cultural nexus, a beacon of learning that would illuminate the world for centuries to come. The city's very fabric, from its grand mosque to its bustling markets, was designed to foster interaction and the exchange of ideas, creating an environment ripe for innovation and discovery. It was here, in the crucible of this new city, that the diverse strands of ancient wisdom would be woven together with new Islamic thought, giving birth to a truly golden age of intellectual flourishing. The year 762 CE marked the genesis of a city that would etch its name into the annals of history. A city born of vision and strategic genius, Caliph Al-Mansur, with an eye for both defense and prosperity, personally surveyed the fertile plains along the western bank of the Tigris River, seeking a location that promised both protection and access to the vast networks of trade. He consulted not only military strategists but also astronomers and scholars, understanding that the very stars could offer guidance in the founding of such a monumental endeavour. With their counsel, the precise auspicious moment was chosen, and Al-Mansur himself laid the first brick, ceremonially initiating the construction of what he envisioned as the heart of his new empire. From every corner of the vast Abbasid realm, skilled labourers, master craftsmen, and brilliant engineers converged, drawn by the promise of patronage and the allure of contributing to a truly unprecedented urban masterpiece. This was Madinat al-Salam, the City of Peace, a perfectly circular marvel of urban planning. Approximately 2 kilometers in diameter, its precise geometry reflecting a cosmic order, 4 grand gates, each oriented toward a cardinal direction, radiated outward, serving as colossal portals that connected Baghdad to the vital arteries of the empire. The Damascus Gate pointed west, leading to Syria. The Khurasan Gate faced east, opening to the ancient lands of Persia, and the Basra and Kufa gates directed south, linking the capital to the rich agricultural lands and bustling ports of Lower Mesopotamia. Imagine standing at the absolute center of this magnificent circle, perhaps within the caliph's own palace, and gazing outward, your view unimpeded, stretching toward the very horizons of the known world, as if the city itself were a cosmic compass. At its zenith, Baghdad pulsed with an energy unlike any other city on earth. Along the banks of the Tigris, a labyrinth of markets sprawled, each sector a vibrant ecosystem of commerce and culture. The booksellers' quarter, a hallowed ground for intellectuals, teemed with scribes and scholars, where ancient Greek treatises, Persian epics, and Indian scientific texts were bought, sold, and meticulously copied. The air in the spice markets hung heavy with the intoxicating aromas of cinnamon, cardamom, and frankincense, brought from distant lands and traded with meticulous care. In the metalworkers' bazaar, a constant rhythmic symphony of hammers striking copper and bronze filled the air, forging intricate lamps, gleaming utensils, and formidable weaponry. Away from the clamour, behind high walls, lay the serene gardens of wealthy merchants and discerning scholars, private oases where the gentle murmur of fountains provided a soothing counterpoint to the city's ceaseless activity, and fragrant fruit trees offered respite from the Mesopotamian sun. Above the rooftops, the elegant minarets of countless mosques pierced the sky, their melodic calls to prayer 5 times a day marking the sacred rhythms of urban life. Weaving a spiritual thread through the fabric of daily existence, Baghdad's true brilliance, however, lay in its profoundly cosmopolitan character. It was a crucible where the diverse peoples of the Abbasid Empire, and indeed the wider world, converged and coexisted. Arabs and Persians, Christians and Jews, Zoroastrians and even Buddhists, lived and worked side by side, their distinct traditions contributing to the city's vibrant tapestry. Christian physicians, trained in the ancient healing arts, served with distinction in the caliphal court, their knowledge deeply valued. Jewish merchants, with their extensive networks, formed crucial links in trade routes that stretched from the bustling ports of India to the distant shores of the Mediterranean, bringing exotic goods and invaluable intelligence. Persian administrators, inheritors of centuries of sophisticated bureaucratic expertise, skillfully managed the vast machinery of the new empire, their wisdom indispensable to its governance. Scholars from every conceivable corner of the known world made the pilgrimage to Baghdad, drawn by its magnetic reputation as a place where knowledge was not merely tolerated, but passionately celebrated and generously rewarded. This was a city that genuinely believed, with a collective and unwavering conviction, that the relentless pursuit of understanding was among humanity's noblest endeavors, fostering an extraordinary intellectual energy that propelled it forward. The Abbasid court itself, residing within the heart of the round city, was a spectacle of both grandeur and profound intellectual curiosity. Elaborate ceremonies unfolded with meticulous precision, showcasing the caliph's majesty. Yet, alongside this imperial pomp, scholarly debates raged, conducted in the presence of caliphs who were often men of considerable learning and insatiable intellectual appetites. It was during the reign of Harun al-Rashid, the 5th Abbasid caliph, that this cultural efflorescence reached its zenith. His era is frequently described as the high point of Abbasid power and artistic patronage, a time when his court became legendary for its unwavering support of scholarship, poetry, and all forms of art. One might imagine an evening in Harun's court, the the soft, warm glow of oil lamps illuminating intricate geometric patterns adorning the walls. Scholars and poets engaging in spirited competition, vying for the caliph's attention and approval, their verses and arguments intertwining with the subtle, lingering scent of rosewater and incense drifting through the air. Ultimately, Baghdad stood as the undisputed nexus of the medieval world's trade networks. It was the extraordinary point where the legendary Silk Road, snaking across vast continents, seamlessly merged with the maritime trade routes of the Indian Ocean. Here, exquisitely crafted silks and porcelain from China arrived alongside profound philosophical treatises and revolutionary mathematical concepts from India. Caravans laden with furs from the north converged with ships carrying spices from the south. European merchants venturing further east than ever before bartered alongside African traders, creating a dynamic global marketplace. The entire world, it seemed, converged in this single, extraordinary place, a city so alive with commerce, culture, and intellectual ferment that even centuries later, its very description seems to pulse with an undiminished energy, leaving an indelible image of a moonlit Baghdad, its magnificent silhouette reflected in the dark, flowing waters of the Tigris. Ultimately, Baghdad stood as the undisputed nexus of the medieval world's trade networks. It was the extraordinary point where the legendary Silk Road, snaking across vast continents, seamlessly merged with the maritime trade routes of the Indian Ocean. Here, exquisitely crafted silks and porcelain from China arrived alongside profound philosophical treatises and revolutionary mathematical concepts from India. Caravans laden with furs from the north converged with ships carrying spices from the south. European merchants, venturing further east than ever before, bartered alongside African traders, creating a dynamic global marketplace. The entire world, it seemed, converged in this single extraordinary place, a city so alive with commerce, culture, and intellectual ferment that even centuries later, its very description seems to pulse with an undiminished energy, leaving an indelible image of a moonlit Baghdad, its magnificent silhouette reflected in the dark, flowing waters of the Tigris. The sheer volume and diversity of goods passing through Baghdad was staggering, transforming it into an economic powerhouse. Gold and silver from African mines flowed into the city, then were minted into dinars and dirhams, the stable and widely accepted currencies that facilitated this vast exchange. These coins, often bearing the intricate calligraphy of Islamic art, were found as far afield as Scandinavia, testament to the reach of Baghdad's economic influence. Beyond precious metals, the city's markets teemed with textiles from Egypt and Persia, precious stones from Afghanistan, and amber from the Baltic. The scent of exotic spices, cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, hung heavy in the air, mingling with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the earthy smell of leather goods. Each transaction was not merely an exchange of goods, but a transfer of ideas, technologies, and artistic styles. Merchants arriving in Baghdad from distant lands didn't just sell their wares, they learned. They observed the advanced irrigation techniques that transformed arid lands into fertile fields. Providing the city with an abundance of food, they marveled at the intricate designs of mosques and palaces, inspiring architects back home. They encountered scholars debating Aristotle and Plato in Arabic, a language that had become the lingua franca of intellectual discourse. The House of Wisdom, in particular, was not just a library but a vibrant academy where scholars from various backgrounds collaborated, translating ancient texts from Greek, Persian, and Sanskrit into Arabic. This intellectual synergy fueled an unprecedented era of innovation. The impact of this cultural melting pot extended far beyond the walls of the city. The introduction of paper-making technology from China, for instance, revolutionized the dissemination of knowledge. Before paper, scribes painstakingly copied texts onto parchment or papyrus, a laborious and expensive process. With paper, books became more accessible, leading to a proliferation of libraries and a democratizing effect on education. Scholars could now share their findings more easily, accelerating the pace of scientific and philosophical inquiry. The House of Wisdom alone was said to house hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, a treasure trove of human knowledge that dwarfed any contemporary library in Europe. This intellectual dynamism was not confined to abstract thought. It had tangible effects on daily life. Advances in mathematics, particularly the adoption of Indian numerals and the concept of zero, laid the groundwork for modern algebra and algorithms. These innovations were crucial for complex calculations in astronomy, engineering, and finance, Astronomers in Baghdad meticulously mapped the stars, improving navigational techniques and contributing to the development of sophisticated astrolabes, devices used to determine the positions of celestial bodies. Physicians made significant strides in medicine, documenting diseases, developing surgical instruments, and establishing hospitals that offered a level of care unheard of in many other parts of the world. The works of physicians like Rhazes and Avicenna were translated into Latin centuries later and became foundational texts for European medical schools. The architectural marvels of Baghdad were equally impressive. The city itself was originally designed as a perfect circle, a testament to the sophisticated urban planning of the Abbasid Caliphate. Its grand mosque, with its soaring minarets and intricate tilework, was a beacon of religious devotion and artistic expression. Palaces adorned with lush gardens, intricate fountains, and gilded domes showcased the wealth and power of the caliphs, while bustling souks, or marketplaces, with their labyrinthine alleys, offered a sensory overload of sights, sounds, and smells. These structures were not merely functional, they were statements of cultural confidence and artistic prowess, inspiring awe in visitors and serving as models for future Islamic architecture across the globe. In essence, Baghdad was more than just a city. It was a crucible where diverse cultures, ideas, and technologies converged and transmuted into something entirely new and profoundly influential. It was a place where the practicalities of commerce intertwined with the loftiest intellectual pursuits, where the pursuit of knowledge was as valued as the accumulation of wealth. The enduring legacy of this golden age, born from the unique confluence of global trade and intellectual curiosity, would ripple across continents and centuries, shaping the course of human civilization in ways that are still felt today. The image of a moonlit Baghdad, its magnificent silhouette reflected in the dark, flowing waters of the Tigris, is not just a romantic notion, it is a powerful symbol of a city that truly illuminated the world. From the bustling streets of Baghdad, a beacon of unparalleled intellectual light emerged, an institution that would come to symbolize the very essence of the Islamic Golden Age's profound dedication to learning. The Bait al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, this remarkable center for scholarship did not spring forth fully formed. Its genesis lies in a more modest translation bureau established under the Caliph al-Mansur, yet it truly began its ascent to prominence under the visionary patronage of Harun al-Rashid, and it reached its zenith, its most glorious manifestation, under his son Caliph al-Mamun, who reigned from 813 to 833 CE. Al-Mamun, often described as the caliph most personally devoted to the pursuit of knowledge, harbored an intellectual hunger that transcended mere political showmanship. He reportedly dreamt of Aristotle, a vivid encounter that stirred him deeply, and he awoke from that dream more determined than ever to gather the wisdom of the ancient world within the very walls of Baghdad, transforming his personal passion into a monumental cultural endeavor. Al-Mamun's fervor ignited what became known as the translation movement, an undertaking of staggering ambition and meticulous execution. He dispatched emissaries across vast distances, to the Byzantine Empire, to the ancient lands of Persia, to the vibrant kingdoms of India, and to numerous other distant realms. Their mission, though simple in its articulation, was extraordinary in its scope. Find manuscripts, any manuscripts, that contained the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world, and bring them back to Baghdad. Imagine the journeys of these intrepid scholars, navigating treacherous routes, negotiating with foreign potentates, all in the service of knowledge. Once these invaluable texts arrived in Baghdad, a dedicated cadre of scholars, individuals of immense linguistic and intellectual prowess, were employed to translate them. Among them was Hunayn ibn Ishaq, a Christian Arab physician whose translations of Greek medical and philosophical texts were so precise, so elegant, and so faithful to the original spirit that they immediately became the standard references for centuries. Picture Hunayn at his desk, the soft glow of an oil lamp illuminating a parchment, his quill moving deftly between Greek, Syriac, and Arabic. He navigated these languages with the natural ease of a man who lived inside each one simultaneously, carefully rendering the complex thoughts of Galen or Hippocrates into words that Arab physicians could then use to heal their patients, bridging not only linguistic divides but also centuries of medical advancement. The sheer breadth of this translation movement inspires genuine wonder. Greek philosophy and science, encompassing the works of Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, and Ptolemy, arrived in Baghdad often through Syriac intermediaries, carefully preserved and then meticulously translated. Persian astronomical tables, the culmination of centuries of observation and calculations, were absorbed and studied. The groundbreaking work of Indian mathematicians, particularly their contributions to the number system and calculation, was actively integrated and subsequently transformed. What transpired at the House of Wisdom was far more than a mere act of linguistic transcription. It was an active, dynamic intellectual engagement. Muslim scholars did not simply copy what they found. They questioned it, they tested its premises, they debated its conclusions, they corrected perceived errors, and most importantly, they built upon it. The House of Wisdom was not a static museum of ancient knowledge, but a living, breathing laboratory where the wisdom of antiquity met the cutting edge of contemporary inquiry, fostering an environment of continuous intellectual growth and innovation. Within the physical confines of the House of Wisdom, a truly vibrant and dynamic atmosphere prevailed. Great halls stretched out, their walls lined with towering shelves laden with countless manuscripts, each a repository of human thought. In the reading rooms, scholars from every corner of the known world sat engrossed, surrounded by texts in a dozen different languages, their minds grappling with profound questions. High above, in the observatory, astronomers made their nightly observations, their instruments charting the celestial ballet of stars and planets, pushing the boundaries of humanity's understanding of the cosmos. In the tranquil gardens, philosophers engaged in passionate debates, their voices carrying on the cool evening air, wrestling with the nature of existence, ethics, and knowledge. The diversity of the scholars who converged here was extraordinary. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Zoroastrians, Sabians, all united by an unwavering commitment to the pursuit of truth, wherever that truth might lead them. This community pulsed with an electric intellectual excitement, a shared sense of participating in something historically unprecedented, a deeply held conviction that knowledge had no nationality, no single religion, but belonged to all of humanity. The work undertaken at the House of Wisdom during the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries held profound implications for the entire trajectory of human civilization. Without the meticulous efforts of these scholars in Baghdad, much of the ancient world's intellectual heritage would have been irrevocably lost to history. The foundational works of Aristotle, the geometrical theorems of Euclid, the astronomical models of Ptolemy, the medical insights of Galen, and the contributions of dozens of other ancient thinkers survived the tumultuous medieval period, largely because they were translated into Arabic, carefully studied, and diligently preserved within the Islamic world. These precious texts were then, centuries later, retransmitted to Europe, sparking the Renaissance and laying the groundwork for modern science. This realization leaves one with a profound sense of gratitude, a gentle, peaceful awareness that as the world drifts towards sleep, it does so in the company of one of history's most remarkable and enduring intellectual communities. The 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries held profound implications for the entire trajectory of human civilization. Without the meticulous efforts of these scholars in Baghdad, much of the ancient world's intellectual heritage would have been irrevocably lost to history. The foundational works of Aristotle, the geometrical theorems of Euclid, the astronomical models of Ptolemy, the medical insights of Galen, and the contributions of dozens of other ancient thinkers survived the tumultuous medieval period, largely because they were translated into Arabic, carefully studied, and diligently preserved within the Islamic world. These precious texts were then, centuries later, retransmitted to Europe, sparking the Renaissance and laying the groundwork for modern science. This realization leaves one with a profound sense of gratitude, a gentle, peaceful awareness that as the world drifts towards sleep, it does so in the company of one of history's most remarkable and enduring intellectual communities. The sheer scale of this translational movement was unprecedented, a monumental undertaking that spanned generations and involved countless dedicated individuals. Imagine the bustling scriptoria in Baghdad, where parchment rustled and quills scratched late into the night, as scholars pored over fragile manuscripts deciphering ancient Greek and Syriac, then carefully rendering their complex ideas into the flowing script of Arabic. This wasn't merely a mechanical process of word-for-word substitution. It demanded a deep understanding of philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, coupled with an exceptional command of both source and target languages. The translators were often polymaths themselves, capable of engaging with the intellectual content on its own terms, ensuring that the nuances and profound insights of the original texts were not lost in translation. They were intellectual bridge builders, connecting disparate linguistic and cultural worlds, weaving together the threads of human knowledge. Consider the example of Hunayn ibn Ishaq, an Nestorian Christian physician and scholar from the 9th century, who became a central figure in this movement. He was not only a prolific translator of medical and philosophical texts from Greek into Arabic and Syriac, but also a brilliant physician in his own right, whose medical writings were highly influential for centuries. His meticulous approach to translation was legendary. He would often travel to distant lands to acquire rare manuscripts, comparing multiple versions of a text to ensure accuracy before beginning his work. His efforts alone ensured the survival and transmission of a vast corpus of Galen's medical works, which became the bedrock of Islamic medicine and, subsequently, European medical practice for hundreds of years. The impact of his work on the development of ophthalmology, for instance, was profound, as he translated and wrote extensively on the anatomy of the eye and the treatment of eye diseases. Beyond the act of translation, the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age actively engaged with and built upon these inherited traditions. They didn't simply preserve, they innovated. Al-Khwarizmi, for example, a Persian polymath, took the Indian numerical system, including the concept of zero, and introduced it to the Islamic world and subsequently to Europe. His treatise on the calculation with Hindu numerals laid the foundation for modern arithmetic, and his work, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing, gave us the term algebra. He didn't just translate existing mathematical knowledge, he synthesized, expanded, and systematized it, creating entirely new branches of mathematics that would prove indispensable for scientific advancement. His systematic approach to solving linear and quadratic equations was a revolutionary step, moving beyond specific problems to develop general methods applicable to a wide range of situations. Similarly, in astronomy, while acknowledging the profound contributions of Ptolemy, Islamic astronomers soon began to identify limitations and inaccuracies in his geocentric model. Scholars like al-Battani and Ibn al-Haytham conducted their own meticulous observations, refining astronomical tables and developing more sophisticated instruments. Ibn al-Haytham, often considered the father of optics, challenged ancient Greek theories of vision, proposing that light enters the eye rather than being emitted from it. His rigorous experimental methodology and detailed anatomical studies of the eye marked a significant departure from purely theoretical approaches, laying the groundwork for modern scientific inquiry. His work on lenses and mirrors was also groundbreaking, influencing the development of spectacles and telescopes centuries later. The House of Wisdom, or Bayt al-Hikmah in Baghdad, established by Caliph al-Ma'mun in the early 9th century, epitomized this intellectual fervor. It was more than just a library. It was a vibrant academy, a research institution, and a translation bureau all rolled into one. Scholars from diverse backgrounds and faiths worked side by side, fueled by a shared passion for knowledge. They translated, debated, conducted experiments, and wrote original treatises across almost every field of human endeavor: mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, geography, chemistry, and engineering. This collaborative environment fostered an explosion of intellectual activity, creating a fertile ground for new discoveries and advancements. The sheer volume of books produced during this period was staggering, transforming Baghdad into the intellectual capital of the world, a beacon of learning whose light reached far beyond its city walls. The commitment to scholarship was so profound that rulers would often pay translators the weight of the translated text in gold, demonstrating the immense value placed on intellectual pursuits. This era was not merely a bridge between antiquity and modernity. It was a vibrant, innovative period in its own right, a testament to the enduring human quest for understanding. Imagine a scholar in Baghdad during the vibrant reign of Caliph al-Ma'mun, his mind alight with the intellectual energy that pulsed through the House of Wisdom. This was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, a man whose work would echo through centuries, shaping the very language we use to understand the universe. He was surrounded by an astonishing confluence of knowledge, with ancient mathematical traditions from Greece, Persia, and India, all converging in one place, a convergence no scholar before him had ever fully grasped. Picture him as a young man, perhaps seated amidst towering shelves of scrolls and codices, in one of the grand reading rooms of the House of Wisdom. The air would be thick with the scent of aged parchment and lamp oil, the hushed murmur of scholars poring over texts in languages he was still mastering. There was a particular kind of excitement, a tangible thrill, in realizing that the disparate pieces of a grand intellectual puzzle were not just scattered fragments, but were all around him, waiting to be assembled into a coherent whole. It was the feeling of standing on the precipice of a discovery that would fundamentally alter human understanding. Before al-Khwarizmi, the world lacked a systematic approach to solving mathematical equations. Problems were tackled individually, often through laborious geometric constructions or through a painstaking process of trial and error. There was no overarching method, no universal language to describe these mathematical relationships. Then came al-Khwarizmi's monumental work, the Kitab al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Mukabala, which translates to the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. This single treatise offered the world a general method, a structured language for approaching and solving mathematical problems. The very word algebra is a direct descendant of al-Jabr, which appeared in the title of his groundbreaking book. Furthermore, al-Khwarizmi's own name, when Latinized, became algorithmi, which in turn gave us the word algorithm. It is a quiet astonishment to realize that these words, so ubiquitous in our modern world, carry within them the memory of a scholar working diligently by lamplight in 9th century Baghdad. Al-Khwarizmi's contributions extended far beyond algebra. He played a crucial role in introducing the Hindu-Arabic numeral system to the Islamic world, and subsequently to Europe, a system we still employ today. This wasn't merely a new set of symbols, it was a revolutionary concept, particularly its ingenious use of zero as a placeholder. Before this, mathematical systems like Roman numerals, despite their complexity, struggled with the very idea of absence having numerical value. Al-Khwarizmi helped popularize the understanding of zero not just as an empty space but as a number in its own right, a concept that could be calculated with, opening up vast new possibilities for mathematical expression that had previously been unimaginable. This seemingly simple idea represented a quiet revolution in human thought, a profound realization that took millennia to fully grasp. His intellectual curiosity also led him into the realms of astronomy and geography. He meticulously revised Ptolemy's geographical coordinates, correcting errors and expanding upon existing maps. His astronomical tables, known as the Sintin tables, became indispensable tools for scholars across the Islamic world and eventually found their way into European intellectual circles. He contributed to the development and refinement of instruments like the astrolabe, crucial for celestial observation and navigation. Al-Khwarizmi was a man of extraordinary intellectual breadth, moving with ease between disciplines, understanding instinctively that mathematics, astronomy, and geography were interconnected. He recognized that the same elegant mathematical language capable of describing the precise movements of celestial bodies could also be used to accurately map the contours of the Earth. Every time someone interacts with a computer, every instance an algorithm sorts a search result or guides a route on a smartphone, every moment a student grapples with algebra in a classroom anywhere in the world, the enduring presence of that 9th century Baghdad scholar, Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, can be felt. This legacy is not proclaimed with fanfare, but lives on quietly, woven so deeply into the fabric of daily life that it has become almost invisible. It is a testament to the profound and lasting impact of a mind that sought to understand and articulate the very language of the universe. His contributions were not merely theoretical exercises, they were practical tools that laid the groundwork for advancements across numerous fields. Consider the astrolabe, for instance, an instrument that reached new heights of sophistication in the Islamic world. While its origins predate al-Khwarizmi, his mathematical principles were instrumental in refining its accuracy and expanding its utility. This portable device, capable of measuring the altitude of celestial bodies, became indispensable for astronomers, astrologers, and perhaps most crucially, navigators. With it, sailors could determine their latitude, traders could orient themselves across vast desert landscapes, and pilgrims could ascertain the precise direction of the Kaaba in Mecca, fulfilling a fundamental religious obligation. Al-Khwarizmi's work provided the mathematical backbone for such instruments, transforming them from rudimentary devices into sophisticated scientific tools. Then there is the very concept of algorithms, a term derived directly from his name. Before Al-Khwarizmi, mathematical operations were often described in prose, a cumbersome and imprecise method. He introduced a systematic, step-by-step approach to solving problems, a method so clear and logical that it could be followed by anyone, regardless of their innate mathematical genius. This was revolutionary. It democratized mathematics, making complex calculations accessible and repeatable. The methodical procedures he outlined for solving linear and quadratic equations were the prototypes for every subsequent algorithm developed. From the intricacies of modern computer programming to the simplest instructions for baking a cake, his genius lay not just in finding solutions, but in codifying the asterisk process asterisk of finding solutions, thereby enabling others to replicate and build upon his work. The impact of al-Khwarizmi's work on the development of cartography and geography is equally profound. His treatise, Kitab Surat al-Ada, or the Book of the Description of the Earth, was a monumental undertaking. Drawing upon the work of Ptolemy and other Greek geographers, he meticulously corrected and refined their data, often incorporating information gleaned from the extensive travels and trade routes of the Islamic world. He provided coordinates for thousands of cities, mountains, and rivers, creating one of the most accurate maps of the known world at the time. This wasn't merely an academic exercise, it had immense practical implications. Precise maps were vital for trade, for military campaigns, and for the administration of a vast and expanding empire. They facilitated communication and helped to knit together disparate regions, fostering a sense of shared knowledge and understanding across diverse cultures. The intellectual environment of Baghdad during the Abbasid Caliphate, particularly within the hallowed halls of the House of Wisdom, provided the fertile ground for al-Khwarizmi's brilliance to flourish. This institution was more than just a library. It was a vibrant center of translation, research, and collaboration. Scholars from various backgrounds, speaking different languages, converged there, driven by a shared thirst for knowledge. They translated Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic, preserving ancient wisdom that might otherwise have been lost to history. Al-Khwarizmi was a prominent figure within this intellectual melting pot, absorbing and synthesizing knowledge from diverse traditions, then adding his own unique insights. His work on the Indian numeral system, for instance, which included the revolutionary concept of zero, was a direct result of this cross-cultural exchange. He recognized the immense power and efficiency of this positional system, advocating for its adoption and thereby paving the way for the decimal system that underpins virtually all modern scientific and financial calculations. The elegance of his algebraic methods, the precision of his astronomical tables, and the systematic nature of his algorithms all speak to a mind deeply attuned to order and clarity. He saw the universe not as a chaotic jumble of phenomena, but as a system governed by discernible rules that could be expressed and understood through the language of mathematics. His legacy is not just a collection of formulas or theorems, it is a testament to the power of human intellect to discern patterns, to build systems, and to create tools that empower future generations to see further and understand more deeply. His name may not be on every street sign or in every household, but his ideas, his methods, and his spirit of inquiry are undeniably etched into the very foundations of our technological and scientific world. Muhammad ibn Zakaria al-Razi, known in the West as Rhazes, brought to the bustling cities of Baghdad and his native Rai in Persia a revolutionary approach to medicine, transforming it from an art steeped in tradition into a science grounded in empirical observation. He ran hospitals with an organizational sophistication that would not be paralleled in Europe for centuries, demonstrating a profound commitment to patient care and public health. One famous anecdote illustrates his practical, evidence-driven mind. When tasked with selecting a site for a new hospital in Baghdad, al-Razi reportedly hung pieces of fresh meat in various locations throughout the city. His reasoning was simple yet ingenious. The area where the meat putrefied slowest would possess the cleanest air, and thus be the most conducive to healing and recovery for patients. This method, a testament to his observational prowess, reveals a scholar who prioritized tangible results over inherited dogma. Al-Razi's clinical work showcased an extraordinary blend of compassion and scientific rigor. He penned the first clear and accurate clinical description distinguishing smallpox from measles, a groundbreaking achievement that had immense practical implications for diagnosis, treatment, and public health interventions. Prior to his work, these two devastating diseases were often conflated, leading to misdiagnosis and ineffective care. His seminal encyclopedic work, the Kitab al-Hawi, or the Comprehensive Book, stands as a monumental achievement in medical history. This vast compilation meticulously gathered the accumulated medical wisdom of Greek, Persian, and Indian traditions, but critically, it also integrated al-Razi's own extensive clinical observations. He recorded these observations with a precision and honesty that was truly remarkable for any era, often detailing cases where his own findings contradicted established authorities, including the revered Galen. This willingness to challenge long-held beliefs in the face of empirical evidence became a hallmark of Islamic Golden Age scholarship, marking a profound shift in intellectual methodology. Then there was Ibn Sina, known to the West as Avicenna, a figure of almost mythical intellectual prowess. By the astonishing age of 10, he had committed the entire Quran to memory. His intellectual journey continued with an equally rapid ascent in the medical field. By 16, he had mastered all the available medical texts of his time. This prodigious talent did not go unnoticed. At 18, he successfully treated the Samanid prince Nu'aybin Mansur, an accomplishment that earned him an unparalleled reward: unrestricted access to the royal library. Imagine the young Ibn Sina, a scholar barely out of adolescence, immersed in a treasure trove of knowledge that most academics of his era could only dream of accessing. He devoured texts through the night, driven by a focused intensity, understanding that this was an extraordinary gift, an opportunity to synthesize and expand upon the entirety of human medical knowledge. Ibn Sina's magnum opus, The Canon of Medicine, became one of the most influential books in the entire history of human civilization. This monumental work synthesized and meticulously organized all the medical knowledge of the ancient world, seamlessly integrating Ibn Sina's own clinical observations and theoretical insights. For over 600 years, it served as the primary medical textbook in both the Islamic world and in European universities, a testament to its comprehensiveness and clarity. The Canon's remarkable organization was a key to its enduring influence. It presented a systematic approach to anatomy, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, and clinical medicine, structured with such clear and logical precision that it allowed practitioners to quickly locate information and understand the intricate relationships between different aspects of medical knowledge. Quietly yet profoundly, Ibn Sina also understood the critical importance of clinical trials, of rigorously testing treatments on patients, meticulously recording the results, and distinguishing between what truly worked and what merely appeared to work by chance or superstition. The medical tradition forged during the Islamic Golden Age, epitomized by these two giants, represented far more than just intellectual advancement. It embodied a profound moral commitment to human welfare. The hospitals of Baghdad and Cairo, for instance, were not merely places of healing, but institutions that provided free treatment to all patients, regardless of their social standing or ability to pay. They featured separate wards dedicated to different conditions, employed pharmacists and surgeons alongside physicians, and systematically trained new generations of healers with rigorous curricula. These institutions stood as beacons of compassion, reflecting a deeply held belief that the alleviation of suffering was among the highest human obligations, a legacy that continues to resonate across the centuries. By carefully testing treatments on patients, meticulously recording the results, and distinguishing between what truly worked and what merely appeared to work by chance or superstition, the medical tradition forged during the Islamic Golden Age, epitomized by these two giants, represented far more than just intellectual advancement. It embodied a profound moral commitment to human welfare. The hospitals of Baghdad and Cairo, for instance, were not merely places of healing, but institutions that provided free treatment to all patients, regardless of their social standing or ability to pay. They featured separate wards dedicated to different conditions, employed pharmacists and surgeons alongside physicians, and systematically trained new generations of healers with rigorous curricula. These institutions stood as beacons of compassion, reflecting a deeply held belief that the alleviation of suffering was among the highest human obligations, a legacy that continues to resonate across the centuries. Beyond the formal institutions, the intellectual ferment of the era fostered an environment where medical knowledge was continuously challenged, refined, and expanded. Scholars diligently translated and assimilated the works of ancient Greek, Roman, Persian, and Indian physicians, not as static dogma, but as foundational texts upon which to build. This process of translation was not a mere transcription. It involved critical analysis, correction of errors, and the addition of new observations. For example, Hunayn ibn Ishaq, a pivotal figure in the House of Wisdom, translated numerous Greek medical texts, including much of Galen's corpus, but his team also produced their own original works, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding and a willingness to question established theories. His book 10 Treatises on the Eye became the most influential ophthalmological text for centuries, detailing the anatomy of the eye with unprecedented accuracy and describing various eye diseases and their treatments. The emphasis on empirical observation extended to pharmacology as well. Pharmacists, known as Seydalani, were highly respected professionals who developed and refined countless medicinal compounds. They traveled extensively to gather rare herbs and minerals, documenting their properties and effects with meticulous detail. The Al-Biruni, a polymath of the 11th century, compiled extensive pharmacopoeias, cataloguing hundreds of drugs, their origins and their uses. This systematic approach led to the discovery and application of new therapeutic agents, transforming the treatment of various ailments. Consider the widespread use of camphor as an antiseptic and a diaphoretic, or the introduction of senna as a purgative, both innovations that emerged from this period. But precision in compounding and dispensing medicines was paramount, as evidenced by the elaborate pharmaceutical gardens cultivated near hospitals, providing fresh ingredients for remedies. Surgery also saw significant advancements. Abu al-Qasim al-Zahrawi, known in the West as Abu al-Qasis, is often hailed as the father of modern surgery. His monumental work, Al-Tasrif, a 30-volume medical encyclopedia, dedicated an entire section to surgical instruments and procedures. He described and illustrated over 200 surgical tools, many of which he invented himself, including scalpels, forceps, retractors, and surgical needles. Al-Zahrawi detailed complex operations such as cataract removal, lithotomy, removal of bladder stones, and procedures for treating fractures and dislocations. He emphasized the importance of antiseptic practices, the careful management of pain, and the need for surgeons to possess not only technical skill, but also a deep understanding of anatomy and physiology. His work was translated into Latin and became a standard surgical textbook in Europe for over 5 centuries, profoundly influencing the development of Western surgical practices. The systematic approach to medical education was another hallmark of this era. Aspiring physicians underwent rigorous training, typically beginning with an apprenticeship under an experienced master, followed by formal study in hospitals and madrasas. They learned anatomy through dissection. Though human dissection was sometimes controversial and limited, animal dissection was frequently employed, and detailed anatomical charts and texts were widely used. Clinical observation was central to their training, with students accompanying physicians on rounds, learning to diagnose diseases, prescribe treatments, and manage patient care. Upon completion of their studies, they would often have to pass an examination to receive an ijaza, a license to practice medicine, ensuring a high standard of professional competence. This structured educational system produced generations of highly skilled and ethical medical practitioners, contributing to the widespread reputation of Islamic medicine. Furthermore, the concept of public health gained considerable attention. Scholars and physicians recognized the importance of hygiene, sanitation, and disease prevention. They wrote treatises on the benefits of clean water, proper waste disposal, and healthy eating habits. The construction of elaborate water systems, including aqueducts and public baths, reflected a societal commitment to health and well-being. Epidemiological studies, though not formally recognized as such, were implicitly conducted through the meticulous recording of disease outbreaks and their patterns. For example, Ibn al-Khatib, a physician from Granada, recognized that infectious diseases like the Black Death were transmitted through contagion, a revolutionary concept at a time when miasma theory was prevalent. These insights laid the groundwork for future understanding of disease transmission and public health interventions. The intellectual curiosity and practical application of knowledge during this period created a flourishing medical landscape that pushed the boundaries of what was known and what was possible in healing. The 9th century intellectual landscape of Baghdad witnessed the emergence of a new kind of scholar, one who dared to bridge the seemingly disparate worlds of ancient Greek philosophy and Islamic revelation. This was the monumental undertaking of Abu Yusuf Yaqub ibn Ishaq al-Kindi, a man of pure Arab lineage, who embarked on a singular mission to demonstrate that the rigorous pursuit of truth through reason as championed by the Greeks was not merely compatible with, but indeed a powerful complement to, the divine truths unveiled through prophecy. Al-Kindi navigated a cultural terrain where some religious scholars viewed Greek thought with suspicion, seeing it as the product of pagan traditions alien to Islamic belief. Yet, with meticulous care and profound insight, Al-Kindi argued that both avenues ultimately converged on the same ultimate reality. His patient articulation of this harmony between reason and faith laid a crucial cornerstone not just for philosophy, but for the very possibility of intellectual culture within the Islamic world. Al-Kindi's mind was a universe unto itself. Refusing to be confined by artificial disciplinary boundaries, his prolific output spanned an astonishing array of subjects, from the intricate abstractions of philosophy and mathematics to the precise observations of optics, the harmonies of music, the practicalities of medicine, and the enigmatic patterns of meteorology. Among his many remarkable achievements stands his pioneering work in cryptanalysis, the art and science of deciphering coded messages. This particular endeavor demanded a rare combination of mathematical sophistication, a deep intuitive understanding of language, and a mastery of probability theory. It reveals a mind driven by an insatiable curiosity, a profound conviction that all knowledge was interconnected, and a relentless pursuit of understanding wherever it might lead. Building upon Al-Kindi's foundational work, Abu Nasr al-Farabi, a scholar of either Turkish or Persian descent, elevated this philosophical project to unprecedented heights. Operating first in the vibrant intellectual milieu of Baghdad and later finding patronage in the courts of Damascus and Aleppo, al-Farabi earned the revered title of the Second Teacher, a direct acknowledgement of his profound intellectual kinship with Aristotle himself. Recognized as the first teacher, al-Farabi's genius lay in his masterful synthesis. He wove together the logical rigor and political theories of Aristotle with Plato's vision of the ideal state, all infused with distinctly Islamic concepts of prophecy and divine revelation. This intricate tapestry formed a philosophical framework of extraordinary depth and richness. He envisioned the ideal ruler not merely as a statesman, but as a philosopher and a prophet, a figure capable of directly apprehending ultimate truth and then translating it into a form accessible and understandable to the populace, guiding them towards collective flourishing. The polymathic spirit of the Islamic Golden Age shone brightly in figures like al-Farabi, who rarely confined themselves to a single field. His monumental work, Kitab al-Musiq al-Kabir, or the Great Book of Music, stands as one of the most comprehensive treatises on musical theory produced in the entire medieval world. This work delved far beyond mere scales and modes, exploring the profound psychological and emotional effects of music, investigating the deep mathematical underpinnings of harmony, and examining music's vital role within human society. One can almost picture al-Farabi, reputedly a virtuoso on the oud, enchanting the Hamdanid courts of Aleppo, a philosopher who understood intrinsically that beauty and truth were not separate entities, but intimately intertwined facets of existence. When European scholars in the 12th and 13th centuries began their fervent rediscovery of Aristotle, encountering his works through Latin translations, they were often reading not only the ancient Greek texts, but also the invaluable commentaries and interpretations crafted by Islamic philosophers. These intellectual currents, flowing from the minds of Al-Kindi, al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and countless others, profoundly shaped how Aristotle was understood and integrated into Western thought. Thomas Aquinas, the towering intellect of medieval Christianity, constructed his monumental synthesis of Aristotelian philosophy and Christian theology upon foundations that had been meticulously laid by Islamic thinkers 2 centuries before him, who had undertaken a remarkably similar reconciliation for Islam. Ideas, like vast unseen rivers, traverse continents and centuries, nourishing every intellectual landscape they touch, leaving an indelible mark on the unfolding human story. Their influence extended far beyond the Islamic world. When European scholars in the 12th and 13th centuries began their fervent rediscovery of Aristotle, encountering his works through Latin translations, they were often reading not only the ancient Greek texts, but also the invaluable commentaries and interpretations crafted by Islamic philosophers. These intellectual currents, flowing from the minds of Al-Kindi, al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and countless others, profoundly shaped how Aristotle was understood and integrated into Western thought. Thomas Aquinas, the towering intellect of medieval Christianity, constructed his monumental synthesis of Aristotelian philosophy and Christian theology upon foundations that had been meticulously laid by Islamic thinkers 2 centuries before him, who had undertaken a remarkably similar reconciliation for Islam. Ideas, like vast unseen rivers, traverse continents and centuries, nourishing every intellectual landscape they touch, leaving an indelible mark on the unfolding human story. The translation movement itself, commencing in the 8th century under the Abbasid Caliphate, was an enterprise of unprecedented scale and ambition. Scholars, often working in teams and sometimes even competing for patronage, meticulously rendered Greek, Syriac, Pahlavi, and Sanskrit texts into Arabic. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad, established by Caliph al-Ma'mun, became a vibrant hub for this intellectual endeavor, attracting polymaths and specialists from across the burgeoning Islamic world. This wasn't merely a mechanical transfer of words. It was a deep engagement with foreign thought, a process of assimilation and critique that laid the groundwork for original contributions. They didn't just translate Euclid's Elements, they analyzed its proofs, refined its definitions, and developed new geometric theorems. They didn't just translate Ptolemy's Almagest, they observed the heavens with greater precision, questioned his geocentric model, and proposed alternative planetary theories. Consider the field of medicine, where figures like Al-Razi, known in the West as Rhazes, authored comprehensive encyclopedias that systematized existing knowledge and introduced novel clinical observations. His work, Kitab al-Hawi fi al-Tib, or the Comprehensive Book of Medicine, contained detailed case studies and descriptions of diseases, some of which were unprecedented in their accuracy. Ibn Sina, or Avicenna, perhaps the most influential physician of the era, penned the Canon of Medicine, a colossal medical encyclopedia that remained a standard textbook in Europe for centuries. This wasn't simply a collection of remedies, it was a systematic approach to diagnosis, pharmacology, and clinical practice. Emphasizing rational observation and experimentation, Islamic hospitals, like the famous Al-Adudi Hospital in Baghdad, were not just places for healing but also centers for medical education and research, featuring specialized wards, pharmacies, and libraries. In the realm of mathematics, the introduction of Hindu-Arabic numerals, including the concept of zero, revolutionized calculation and paved the way for algebra, a term derived from the Arabic al-Jabra, found in the title of al-Khwarizmi's seminal work. Al-Khwarizmi's contributions extended beyond just solving linear and quadratic equations. He also laid the foundations for algorithms, a concept fundamental to modern computing. Other mathematicians like Omar Khayyam developed sophisticated methods for solving cubic equations, while al-Biruni explored trigonometry and contributed to geodesy, even calculating the Earth's circumference with remarkable accuracy. These advancements were not isolated academic pursuits. They were intrinsically linked to practical needs, such as calculating inheritance shares, designing irrigation systems, and determining prayer times and the direction of Mecca. Astronomy too flourished, driven by both religious imperatives and a profound intellectual curiosity. Observatories like the Marageh Observatory in Persia housed sophisticated instruments, including massive quadrants and armiliospheres, allowing for precise celestial measurements. Astronomers like Ibn al-Haytham, known as Al-Hazan, made groundbreaking discoveries in optics, challenging ancient Greek theories of vision and proposing that light enters the eye rather than being emitted from it. His Book of Optics was a monumental achievement, laying the foundation for modern optics and scientific methodology, emphasizing experimentation and empirical evidence. His work influenced later European thinkers like Roger Bacon and Johannes Kepler. The intricate astrolabes developed by Islamic scholars were not merely navigational tools, they were complex analog computers capable of solving a wide array of astronomical problems, from determining the time of day to locating celestial bodies. The influence of Islamic thought extended into philosophy, logic, ethics, and even the natural sciences, encompassing botany, zoology, and mineralogy. Scholars like Ibn Rushd or Averroes meticulously analyzed and commented on Aristotle's works, often providing deeper insights and challenging prevailing interpretations. His commentaries were so influential that he became known in Europe simply as the commentator. This vibrant intellectual landscape fostered a continuous dialogue, a process of building upon existing knowledge while simultaneously forging new paths. The transmission of these ideas to Europe, primarily through Spain and Sicily, ignited the Latin Renaissance, sparking a renewed interest in learning and inquiry that would eventually give rise to the scientific revolution. The legacy of this golden age is not just a collection of individual discoveries, but a testament to the power of intellectual curiosity, cross-cultural exchange, and the systematic pursuit of knowledge, demonstrating how a civilization can act as a bridge between ancient wisdom and future innovation. Ibn al-Haytham, a scholar from Basra, embarked on a journey that would lead him to Cairo, into the service of the Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim. He once boasted, perhaps with more ambition than foresight, that he possessed the knowledge to regulate the tumultuous flooding of the Nile. However, upon witnessing the river's immense power firsthand, he quickly grasped the impossibility of his grand engineering scheme. To escape the caliph's anticipated wrath, Ibn al-Haytham feigned madness, a desperate act that confined him to years of house arrest. It was within these constrained walls, paradoxically, that he would produce some of the most profound scientific works in human history, demonstrating that groundbreaking intellectual endeavors can indeed blossom even under the most restrictive circumstances. His Kitab al-Manazir, known in the West as the Book of Optics, stands as one of the most revolutionary scientific treatises ever conceived. Before Ibn al-Haytham, the prevailing understanding of vision, rooted in ancient Greek thought, posited that the eye emitted rays that then reached out to touch and perceive objects. Through meticulous experimentation, utilizing darkened rooms and controlled light sources, effectively creating the first camera obscura experiments, Ibn al-Haytham meticulously dismantled this long-held belief. He demonstrated, with undeniable clarity, that vision operates in precisely the opposite manner. Light from external sources enters the eye, forming the images we perceive. This insight, so elegantly simple in its conclusion, belied the extraordinary patience and ingenious design of the experiments that brought it to light. Fundamentally reshaping humanity's understanding of sight and the physical world, al-Biruni, a figure of almost astonishing intellectual breadth, emerged from Central Asia. He was a polymath who effortlessly traversed the realms of mathematics, astronomy, physics, medicine, history, linguistics, and anthropology. Writing with equal fluency in Arabic and Persian, his intellectual curiosity knew no bounds, leading him on extensive travels, most notably to India, where he undertook a comprehensive study of Indian civilization. This monumental work remains one of the most remarkable examples of cross-cultural scholarship ever produced. Al-Biruni harbored a deep conviction that every culture, every civilization, every intellectual tradition held valuable lessons and insights, not as a mere academic stance, but as a profound personal belief, born from an insatiable desire for knowledge and understanding. His time in India exemplifies this extraordinary intellectual empathy. Al-Biruni dedicated himself to learning Sanskrit, allowing him to engage directly with Indian texts in their original language. He interacted with Indian mathematicians, astronomers, and philosophers on their own terms, seeking to understand their perspectives without imposition. His Kitab al-Hind, or Book of India, presented Indian civilization to the Islamic world with a fairness and depth of understanding that was truly exceptional for any era. Al-Biruni's methodology closely mirrored what we now recognize as modern anthropology: participant observation, a deliberate suspension of judgment, and a genuine, sustained effort to comprehend a culture from within, rather than merely describing it from an external vantage point. Both Ibn al-Haytham and al-Biruni shared a fundamental commitment to observation and empirical evidence, prioritizing direct experience over inherited tradition and established authority. They were driven by a willingness to follow the evidence wherever it led, even when it contradicted the received wisdom of the ancient world. This empirical spirit, this insistent demand to test ideas against the tangible reality of the world, represents one of the Islamic Golden Age's most enduring and significant contributions to the history of science. It is a legacy that invites us to envision Ibn al-Haytham in his darkened room, meticulously observing a single beam of light, patiently unraveling the very nature of vision, and al-Biruni, immersed in a foreign land, diligently learning a new language to bridge intellectual divides, both embodying a profound curiosity that continues to inspire. His effort to comprehend a culture from within, rather than merely describing it from an external vantage point. Both Ibn al-Haytham and al-Biruni shared a fundamental commitment to observation and empirical evidence, prioritizing direct experience over inherited tradition and established authority. They were driven by a willingness to follow the evidence wherever it led, even when it contradicted the received wisdom of the ancient world. This empirical spirit, this insistent demand to test ideas against the tangible reality of the world, represents one of the Islamic Golden Age's most enduring and significant contributions to the history of science. It is a legacy that invites us to envision Ibn al-Haytham in his darkened room, meticulously observing a single beam of light, patiently unraveling the very nature of vision, and al-Biruni, immersed in a foreign land, diligently learning a new language to bridge intellectual divides, both embodying a profound curiosity that continues to inspire. This dedication to empirical inquiry was not merely an academic exercise. It was a revolutionary shift in methodology, a departure from the purely theoretical approaches that had often dominated earlier intellectual traditions. Prior to this period, much of scientific understanding relied heavily on deductive reasoning from established principles, often those laid down by ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Ptolemy. While these foundational thinkers offered invaluable insights, their methods sometimes lacked the rigorous experimental verification that Ibn al-Haytham and al-Biruni would champion. They weren't simply refining existing knowledge, they were fundamentally altering the way knowledge itself was acquired and validated. Consider Ibn al-Haytham's monumental work, Kitab al-Manazir, or Book of Optics. Before him, the prevailing theory of vision, largely attributed to Euclid and Ptolemy, suggested that vision occurred when rays emanated from the eye, striking objects and allowing us to perceive them. This emission theory, though widely accepted, never truly explained phenomena like glare or why we don't see in complete darkness. Ibn al-Haytham, however, meticulously constructed experiments. He used dark rooms known as camera obscuras and precisely arranged light sources and apertures to demonstrate that light travels in straight lines and that vision occurs when rays of light bounce off objects and enter the eye. He didn't just hypothesize, he performed, observed, and recorded. His experiments involved careful measurement of angles of incidence and reflection, and he systematically varied conditions to isolate variables, a hallmark of modern scientific method. He challenged centuries of accepted wisdom not through philosophical debate, but through irrefutable evidence derived from direct observation and controlled experimentation. His detailed descriptions of the anatomy of the eye, based on dissection and observation, further solidified his arguments, linking the physical structure of the organ to the mechanics of light and perception. Similarly, al-Biruni's approach to geography, astronomy, and ethnography was underpinned by a relentless pursuit of verifiable data. When he sought to determine the radius of the Earth, for example, he didn't rely solely on ancient texts. Instead, he devised an ingenious method involving the measurement of the dip of the horizon from the top of a mountain of known height. This required precise astronomical observations, topographical surveying, and complex mathematical calculations. His commitment to accuracy was so profound that he meticulously documented his instruments, his methodologies, and even the potential sources of error in his measurements. When studying Indian culture, his linguistic immersion was not just about translation, it was about understanding the nuances of thought and expression, the internal logic of a different worldview. He compiled comprehensive dictionaries, studied Sanskrit texts, and engaged in direct dialogues with Indian scholars, always striving for an insider's perspective rather than imposing his own cultural framework. This was an early form of cultural anthropology, driven by a profound respect for the subject of study and a desire to understand on its own terms, free from prejudice or preconceived notions. This empirical drive, this insistence on observation, experimentation, and direct engagement with the world, was a powerful catalyst for intellectual progress. It fostered a culture where questioning was encouraged, where theories were subjected to rigorous testing, and where knowledge was seen as a dynamic process of discovery rather than a static collection of inherited truths. The scientists of the Islamic Golden Age were not afraid to challenge giants, not out of disrespect, but out of a deeper commitment to understanding the universe as it truly is, rather than as it was once imagined. Their legacy is a testament to the power of curiosity, the importance of method, and the enduring value of seeking truth through direct experience. The great cities of the Islamic Golden Age pulsed with a vibrant energy, each a unique jewel in a vast, interconnected realm. Baghdad, the circular city of peace, hummed with scholarly discourse and the clatter of commerce. Cairo, with its towering minarets, stood as a beacon of learning and trade. Damascus, ancient and storied, offered shaded courtyards and the scent of jasmine. Samarkand and Bukhara, further east, glittered with turquoise domes, serving as vital crossroads on the Silk Road. To walk through these cities was to engage all the senses. Narrow, winding streets, often covered by awnings or the overhanging upper stories of houses, offered respite from the fierce summer sun, leading unexpectedly into vast, open market squares or serene mosque courtyards. The constant murmur of water from fountains and irrigation channels provided a soothing counterpoint to the city's bustle. while the rich aroma of baking bread mingled with the sharp, sweet scent of spices being ground in open-fronted shops. Here, craftsmen hammered metal into intricate designs, weavers meticulously worked their looms, and dyers transformed raw cloth into a riot of color, all visible to the passing pedestrian. From the schools attached to mosques, the rhythmic chant of children reciting the Quran drifted out, a timeless sound weaving through the contemporary din of urban life, inviting one to step into the intricate rhythms and textures of this living past. At the heart of these urban landscapes were the souks and bazaars, not merely places of transaction but vibrant social ecosystems. Here, the pulse of the city was most palpable, where every encounter was an opportunity for social interaction. News, both local and from distant lands, was exchanged as readily as goods. Disputes were mediated by respected merchants, and the bonds of friendship and community were forged and strengthened over cups of sweet tea. The sheer diversity of goods on offer was a testament to the expansive reach of the Islamic world and its trade networks. Silks woven in China lay alongside rare spices from India. Delicate glassware from Syria shimmered next to robust metalwork from Persia. Paper, a revolutionary invention, arrived from Samarkand, while exquisitely bound books, filled with knowledge and poetry, made their way from the scriptoria of Baghdad. Fine textiles from Egypt draped over stalls, and magnificent horses from the steppes of Central Asia were paraded for sale. This incredible array of products offered a daily tangible education, a constant reminder that the world was vast and wonderfully diverse, each item carrying within it a story of distant lands, arduous journeys, and different ways of life. Beyond the urban centers, a quiet revolution was transforming the very landscape of the Islamic world. One less celebrated than its intellectual achievements, but no less profound: the agricultural revolution. Muslim farmers and agronomists acted as conduits, spreading new crops across vast distances, fundamentally altering diets and economies. Cotton, sugarcane, citrus fruits, rice, and a host of other plants, originally native to distant regions, were introduced to the Mediterranean world and beyond, reshaping agricultural practices. This was made possible by highly sophisticated irrigation systems, many inherited and refined from ancient civilizations, which harnessed water from rivers and underground sources to transform arid lands into fertile fields. Detailed agricultural manuals, compiled through centuries of observation and experimentation, documented best practices, cataloging everything from soil types to crop rotation techniques. Markets not only traded finished goods but also served as vital hubs for the exchange of seeds, saplings, and agricultural knowledge, ensuring the continuous dissemination of innovation. This practical contribution to human welfare, rooted in a deep understanding of the natural world, underscored the Islamic Golden Age's holistic approach to knowledge. The aesthetic achievements of this era were equally profound, manifesting in an art that spoke of both beauty and mathematical precision. Islamic decorative art, with its intricate geometric patterns, exemplified this fusion. Interlocking shapes, often based on complex mathematical principles, could be extended infinitely in any direction, a visual metaphor for the boundless and infinite nature of divine creation. This mathematical beauty was simultaneously a spiritual statement. The great mosques, from the majestic Umayyad Mosque in Damascus to the innovative Great Mosque of Cordoba and the venerable Al-Azhar Mosque in Cairo, were not merely places of worship, but architectural masterpieces. Light and space were manipulated with extraordinary skill, creating environments of profound peace and awe. Courtyards provided serene refuges, while soaring arches and domes drew the eye upwards, enveloping worshippers in an atmosphere designed to elevate the spirit. Finally, the literary culture of the Islamic Golden Age permeated every aspect of educated life. Poetry was not an esoteric pursuit but a central form of expression, recited, debated, and celebrated in all social strata. The enchanting tales of the *Thousand and One Nights*, a rich tapestry woven from stories originating in Persia, India, Arabia, and Egypt, captivated audiences with their vivid narratives of human experience, adventure, and wisdom. Travel literature, penned by intrepid scholars and merchants, brought distant lands to life, describing cultures and landscapes with a vividness and curiosity that made readers feel as though they were journeying alongside the authors. There was a particular pleasure then in the simple act of reading by lamplight in a city where books were plentiful and literacy deeply valued. This quiet, intimate act connected the educated person of the Golden Age directly to the grand scholarly tradition of the House of Wisdom. To the accumulated knowledge of centuries, and to the shared human experience encapsulated in stories and verses, this warm image of a lamplit room, a treasured book, and the distant murmuring sounds of a city at rest encapsulates the profound humanity and intellectual richness that defined this extraordinary era. Across the Strait of Gibraltar, on the Iberian Peninsula, an extraordinary civilization blossomed, a place known as Al-Andalus, which stands as one of the most remarkable experiments in multicultural coexistence and intellectual achievement in all of human history. This was a civilization that managed, at its best, to create a space where different religious and cultural traditions could not only coexist, but actively enrich one another. Something genuinely unique in the annals of time. The story of its founding begins with a desperate escape. After the Abbasid revolution swept through the Islamic world, obliterating the Umayyad dynasty in the east, a single young prince, Abd al-Rahman I, the last surviving member of the Umayyad royal family, fled the massacre. He embarked on an epic journey across North Africa, pursued by his enemies, eventually landing in Spain. With extraordinary determination and political skill, he rallied support, established himself as the ruler of Al-Andalus, and created a new Umayyad state in the far west, a defiant mirror to the Abbasid Caliphate in the east. Abd al-Rahman I turned personal disaster into historical achievement, building in Spain a civilization that would eventually surpass anything the Umayyads had achieved in Syria. By the 10th century, Córdoba, the capital of Al-Andalus, had become one of the largest and most sophisticated cities in Europe. Its population may have reached 500,000 people, a staggering figure for the era. Imagine walking through its streets, paved and lit at a time when most European cities were dark and muddy, offering a level of urban comfort and intellectual culture that was genuinely without parallel in the Western world. Public baths, a luxury unknown in much of Europe, were common, and its vast library contained hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, a treasure trove of knowledge. The heart of this magnificent city was the Great Mosque of Córdoba, the Mezquita. Step inside and you are enveloped in a forest of columns and arches, an interior space of extraordinary visual complexity and spiritual power. Each arch seems to draw you deeper into its intricate design, a building that still stands today, astonishing everyone who enters it with its beauty and scale. The intellectual life of Al-Andalus was characterized by extraordinary productivity and a genuine spirit of cross-cultural exchange. Scholars in Córdoba, Muslim, Jewish, and Christian, worked alongside one another, translating texts from Arabic into Latin and Hebrew, creating a vital bridge between the Islamic world's accumulated knowledge and the slowly awakening intellectual life of medieval Europe. Figures like Ibn Rushd, known in the West as Averroes, became central to this intellectual flourishing. His incisive commentaries on Aristotle would become essential reading in European universities, shaping Western philosophy for centuries. Similarly, the great Jewish philosopher Maimonides, who wrote his major works in Arabic while living in Al-Andalus, showed how deeply the Islamic intellectual tradition had penetrated the intellectual life of the Jewish community, demonstrating a profound intellectual synthesis. This concept of convivencia, the coexistence of Muslim, Jewish, and Christian communities in Al-Andalus, was a complex reality. While it represented something genuinely remarkable, a demonstration that people of different faiths could live, work, and think together in ways that enriched all of them, it was not always peaceful or equal. Coexistence existed within a social hierarchy that privileged Muslims and was frequently disrupted by political conflict and religious intolerance. Yet, at its best, it fostered an environment where poets of Al-Andalus wrote in Arabic, Hebrew, and Romance languages, where musicians blended Arab and Iberian musical traditions, and where architects created buildings that expressed multiple cultural influences simultaneously. These cultural achievements stand as a testament to the potential for human connection across divides. Al-Andalus ultimately served as the great transmission point through which Islamic knowledge reached medieval Europe. The Great Translation movement of the 12th century, centered in Toledo after its reconquest by Christian rulers, systematically translated the works of Islamic science, philosophy, and medicine into Latin, making them available to European scholars for the first time. The intellectual revolution we call the Renaissance, which transformed European civilization beginning in the 14th and 15th centuries, was built in significant part on the knowledge that flowed northward from Al-Andalus. Imagine the quiet, scholarly work in Toledo, the painstaking translation of texts that had preserved and expanded upon ancient wisdom, now unlocking a new era for Europe. The image of Córdoba's Great Mosque, its columns stretching away into the distance, its arches catching the light, remains a powerful symbol of this sophisticated civilization, a beacon of learning and culture in the medieval world. It served as the great transmission point through which Islamic knowledge reached medieval Europe. The Great Translation movement of the 12th century, centered in Toledo after its reconquest by Christian rulers, systematically translated the works of Islamic science, philosophy, and medicine into Latin, making them available to European scholars for the first time. The intellectual revolution we call the Renaissance, which transformed European civilization beginning in the 14th and 15th centuries, was built in significant part on the knowledge that flowed northward from Al-Andalus. Imagine the quiet, scholarly work in Toledo, the painstaking translation of texts that had preserved and expanded upon ancient wisdom, now unlocking a new era for Europe. The image of Cordoba's great mosque, its columns stretching away into the distance, its arches catching the light, remains a powerful symbol of this sophisticated civilization, a beacon of learning and culture in the medieval world. The architectural marvels of Al-Andalus, however, were not merely aesthetic achievements, they were also testaments to advanced engineering and mathematical understanding. The intricate geometric patterns found in the Alhambra, for instance, are not simply decorative, they reflect a profound grasp of mathematics, a visual representation of complex algorithms that would not be fully understood in the West for centuries. Beyond the grand mosques and palaces, the cities of Al-Andalus buzzed with intellectual activity in countless smaller ways. Libraries, both public and private, were ubiquitous, often containing tens of thousands of volumes at a time, when even large European monasteries might possess only a few hundred. These libraries were not merely repositories of knowledge, but active centers of study and debate, attracting scholars from across the known world. Picture a dimly lit room, the scent of aged parchment filling the air, as scholars pore over manuscripts, discussing the nuances of Aristotle or the latest astronomical observations. The pursuit of knowledge was a revered endeavor, often supported by wealthy patrons who saw it as their religious and civic duty to foster intellectual growth. This patronage extended to scientific experimentation as well, leading to significant advancements in fields like optics, pharmacology, and mechanics. For example, Abbas ibn Firnas, a polymath of the 9th century, is credited with early attempts at flight, designing and testing a rudimentary glider. Centuries before similar efforts in Europe, his observations of the natural world and his inventive spirit epitomized the empirical approach that characterized much of Islamic science. The agricultural innovations of Al-Andalus also played a crucial role in its prosperity and influence, drawing upon ancient Roman and Persian techniques and developing new ones. Andalusian farmers transformed the arid landscape into fertile fields. They introduced new crops like rice, sugarcane, citrus fruits, and cotton to Europe, fundamentally altering diets and economies. Sophisticated irrigation systems, including canets and water wheels, allowed for intensive cultivation even in dry regions, demonstrating an environmental understanding and engineering prowess far ahead of their time. The bounty of these lands contributed to a thriving economy, enabling the support of a large, educated populace and fueling further intellectual and artistic endeavors. The markets of Seville and Cordoba were vibrant centers of trade, where goods from across the Mediterranean and beyond were exchanged, and where new ideas circulated freely alongside exotic spices and finely crafted textiles. This economic dynamism, coupled with a societal structure that generally tolerated and even integrated diverse religious and ethnic groups, created a unique crucible for cultural and intellectual flourishing. The intermingling of Arabic, Latin, and Hebrew languages, for instance, facilitated the cross-pollination of ideas and fostered a spirit of intellectual inquiry that was truly exceptional for its era. Beyond the familiar centers of Baghdad and Cordoba, the Islamic Golden Age stretched across an immense geographical expanse, weaving a rich tapestry of interwoven cultures and intellectual pursuits. Consider the bustling streets of Samarkand and Bukhara, jewel cities of Central Asia, nestled strategically along the ancient Silk Road. These were not mere trading posts. They were vibrant metropolises where the currents of Chinese, Indian, Persian, and Arab civilizations converged, creating some of the most cosmopolitan societies of their time. Imagine the sensory overload of these markets, the aroma of exotic spices mingling with the scent of fine silks, the murmur of a dozen languages, and the glint of sunlight on intricate metalwork. It was in Samarkand that a quiet revolution in communication took hold, one that profoundly shaped the intellectual landscape of the Islamic world. Following the Battle of Talas in 751 CE, where Chinese prisoners of war revealed the secrets of papermaking, Central Asian craftsmen refined and perfected this technology. The paper mills of Samarkand became legendary, producing a writing material of unparalleled quality, smooth and durable, far superior to parchment or papyrus. This high-quality, affordable paper was the unsung hero of the Golden Age. Without it, the monumental task of the translation movement, the meticulous copying of manuscripts in the House of Wisdom, and the widespread dissemination of knowledge would have been impossible. It was the bedrock upon which the entire edifice of Islamic scholarship was built, allowing ideas to flow freely and endure for centuries. Further west, on the banks of the Nile, another beacon of Islamic civilization emerged with the rise of the Fatimid Caliphate. In 969 CE, they founded Cairo, a city that swiftly grew to rival even Baghdad in its splendor and intellectual vibrancy. Cairo became a powerhouse of trade, a crucible of scholarship, and a vital center for religious life. The Fatimids, with their emphasis on learning, established Al-Azhar, initially conceived as a mosque and religious school. This institution would evolve over the centuries into one of the world's oldest continuously operating universities, a testament to enduring intellectual curiosity. Al-Azhar stands today as a living bridge, connecting the profound scholarly traditions of the Islamic Golden Age directly to the modern era, a continuous thread of learning spanning over a millennium. The vastness of the Islamic world was not merely a collection of isolated urban centers, but a meticulously interconnected network of trade routes. Muslim merchants, driven by an insatiable spirit of enterprise, linked the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean, creating a global economic system unlike any seen before. Arab and Persian dhows plied the waters between the ports of East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, India and Southeast Asia, carrying not just goods but also stories, customs and beliefs. Overland, the ancient Silk Road routes through Central Asia were maintained and extended, dotted with caravanserais, roadside inns providing shelter and sustenance for weary travelers and their animals. Across thousands of miles of desert and steppe, picture a merchant from Cairo embarking on a single voyage, conducting business in Aden, navigating the spice markets of Calicut, and finally reaching the bustling entrepot of Malacca, encountering Hindus, Buddhists, and Chinese alongside his fellow Muslims. These journeys were not just about commerce, they were conduits for the exchange of knowledge and ideas, enriching every culture they touched. The reach of this dynamic civilization extended deep into sub-Saharan Africa. Muslim merchants and scholars ventured into West Africa, East Africa, and the Sahel, establishing trade relationships that gradually gave rise to vibrant Islamic communities. This cultural exchange eventually saw the spread of Islam across much of the continent. The legendary city of Timbuktu, for instance, would later emerge as a major center of Islamic scholarship, boasting its own great libraries and madrasas. Timbuktu stands as a powerful reminder that the intellectual tradition of the Islamic Golden Age was not confined to the Middle East and Mediterranean, but possessed a truly global reach, illustrating the profound and widespread impact of this civilization. What truly bound these diverse places and peoples together was not solely a shared faith, but a potent combination of a common language, a unified intellectual culture, robust commercial networks, and a deep-seated conviction that the pursuit of knowledge represented one of humanity's highest callings. Arabic, more than just the language of the Quran, served as the great unifying thread of the Islamic world. It was the language of science, philosophy, medicine, and commerce, enabling a scholar in Cordoba to engage in profound discourse with a counterpart in Samarkand, and allowing a merchant from Cairo to negotiate seamlessly with a trader in Basra. This linguistic coherence, coupled with a shared intellectual framework, bestowed upon the Islamic world a remarkable degree of cultural unity, especially considering its vast geographic and ethnic diversity. From the late 9th century onward, the vast political unity of the Islamic world began to subtly shift, as real power increasingly migrated from the central authority of the Abbasid caliphs in Baghdad to a succession of vigorous regional dynasties and ambitious military leaders. These new power brokers, while exercising actual authority over their domains, still recognized the Abbasid caliph as a symbolic source of religious legitimacy, a spiritual figurehead whose name was invoked in Friday prayers, and whose nominal blessing lent a veneer of tradition to their rule. This was not a sudden dramatic collapse, but rather a complex gradual transformation, a slow unwinding of centralized control that paradoxically coincided with an accelerating pace of cultural and intellectual achievement across these newly autonomous regions. Consider, for instance, the Buyid dynasty, a Shiite Persian family that moved into Baghdad itself in 945 CE, effectively reducing the Abbasid caliphs to mere puppets while maintaining the outward forms of their authority. Further east, the Samanids, a Persian dynasty ruling Central Asia, fostered an extraordinary blossoming of Persian literary culture, nurturing poets like Rudaki and Ferdowsi, whose epic Shahnameh or Book of Kings became a foundational text of Persian identity. In Syria, the Hamdanids, an Arab dynasty, became renowned patrons of some of the era's greatest poets and philosophers, drawing intellectual luminaries to their courts. Across the eastern Islamic lands, the Ghaznavids, of Turkish origin, not only extended Islamic power deeper into India but also supported scholars of immense caliber, such as the polymath al-Biruni, whose scientific explorations spanned astronomy, mathematics, and anthropology. The remarkable truth emerging from this period is that the fragmentation of political power did not lead to a corresponding fragmentation of culture. In fact, the competition among these multiple courts for the prestige of patronizing the most brilliant scholars and artists may have spurred an even greater outpouring of creative and intellectual production. The changing face of power also saw the rise of Turkish military strength within the Islamic world. Initially brought into the Abbasid army as slave soldiers, known as Mamluks, and later as free recruits, Turkish warriors gradually became an indispensable and eventually dominant military force. By the mid-11th century, the Seljuk Turks, having migrated from the Central Asian steppes, established their own sultanate, and by 1055 CE, they had entered Baghdad, effectively taking control of the Abbasid Caliphate. Yet this was far from a dark age. The Seljuk period, much like the preceding eras of regional autonomy, became another vibrant phase of cultural and intellectual flourishing. The great Persian poet and mathematician Omar Khayyam worked under Seljuk patronage, crafting his profound rubaiyat, and contributing to astronomical reforms. It was also under Seljuk rule that the philosopher and theologian Al-Ghazali produced his monumental work, the Ihya Ulum al-Din, or Revival of the Religious Sciences. Furthermore, the madrasa system, a structured and formal institution for Islamic education, was systematically expanded and formalized during this time, laying the groundwork for future generations of scholars. Al-Ghazali stands as one of the most important and complex figures of the Islamic Golden Age. A scholar of prodigious intelligence and learning, he occupied the most prestigious academic chair in Baghdad. Yet in his early 40s, he underwent a profound spiritual crisis. He famously abandoned his esteemed position, leaving behind the comforts of academic life to spend years as a wandering Sufi mystic. This period of intense introspection and spiritual seeking profoundly reshaped his understanding of faith, reason, and human existence. When he eventually returned to scholarship, it was with a new synthesis of Islamic theology, philosophy, and mysticism embodied in his masterwork, The Revival of the Religious Sciences. This work was a powerful attempt to mend what he perceived as a dangerous schism in Islamic intellectual culture. The growing separation between the external, legalistic dimensions of faith and the internal, spiritual dimensions between the rigorous scholars of law and the mystics who sought direct experience of the divine. Al-Ghazali was not an enemy of philosophy. Rather, he was a thinker who sought to ensure that philosophy served human flourishing and spiritual insight, rather than becoming an abstract pursuit detached from the lived reality of faith. Amidst these internal transformations, the Islamic world also faced external pressures. The Crusader invasions of the Levant, beginning in 1096 CE, introduced a new military and political challenge. While these incursions certainly represented a period of conflict, their cultural impact was more intricate than simple confrontation. The Crusader states established in the Holy Land became, perhaps paradoxically, another point of contact between Islamic and European civilizations. Here, scholars, merchants, and diplomats from both worlds exchanged knowledge, technologies, and ideas. Even amidst more hostile interactions, the Islamic world's eventual military response, spearheaded by figures like Saladin, was not merely a military endeavor. It was accompanied by a genuine cultural and intellectual vitality. Indeed, the period of the Crusades also saw the production of Ibn Rushd's profound philosophical commentaries on Aristotle and Ibn al-Haytham's groundbreaking optical experiments, demonstrating a civilization capable of defending itself while simultaneously advancing the frontiers of knowledge. By the 12th century, the Islamic world had undeniably changed from its 9th century configuration. It was more fragmented politically, with power distributed among numerous regional sultans and emirs. It was more contested religiously, as different schools of thought and spiritual paths navigated their relationship with one another. It was also more challenged militarily, confronting both internal strife and external threats like the Crusaders. Yet, this transformation was not simply a story of decline. It was the complex evolution of a great civilization, adapting to new circumstances, absorbing new influences, and demonstrating a profound resilience. The intellectual heritage, its greatest achievement, continued to be preserved, transmitted, and expanded, even as the political structures that had initially supported its golden age shifted and in some places crumbled. The ability to produce extraordinary scholarship and culture, even amidst profound political realignments, stands as a testament to the enduring vitality of this civilization. The 13th century brought a force of unprecedented scale to the Eurasian continent, the Mongol Empire. Under the leadership of Genghis Khan and his successors, the Mongols forged the largest contiguous land empire in human history, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. This was a political achievement of extraordinary magnitude, fundamentally reshaping the political and cultural landscape of the entire world. While often remembered for its violent conquests, the Mongol dominion also fostered a remarkable period of cultural exchange, a phenomenon often referred to as the Pax Mongolica. This imposed peace across the vast Silk Road facilitated the movement of goods, ideas, and people across immense distances, allowing for a level of communication and trade that had not been seen for centuries. The Mongol world thus presents a complex picture, a destructive force that was, paradoxically, also a powerful engine of global connection and cultural diffusion. Hulagu Khan, a grandson of Genghis Khan, led the Mongol invasion into the Islamic heartland, a figure whose motivations and actions were far from simple. His mother was a Christian, and he himself was known to patronize scholars and astronomers. Even as his armies swept across Persia and into Mesopotamia, the Mongol advance through these regions in the 1250s was not an unstoppable natural disaster, but a calculated military and political campaign. It was driven by specific objectives, shaped by strategic decisions, and its consequences were the direct result of choices made by real human beings. The sheer military efficiency of the Mongol war machine, combined with the fragmented political state of the Islamic world, created the conditions for a devastating confrontation. The siege and subsequent sack of Baghdad in 1258 CE stand as a somber moment in human history. The city, which had served as the intellectual capital of the world for 5 centuries, the very heart of the Abbasid Caliphate, fell to Hulagu's forces. The last Abbasid Caliph, al-Mustasim, was killed, marking the end of a dynasty that had begun with such revolutionary fervor. The devastation extended far beyond human lives. The libraries of Baghdad, including the famed House of Wisdom, were destroyed, their irreplaceable manuscripts cast into the Tigris River, their ink reportedly staining the waters black. Scholars were killed or scattered, and the institutional structures that had supported centuries of intellectual endeavor were shattered. This was a genuine tragedy of human intellectual history, not because it extinguished the light of Islamic civilization entirely, but because it erased countless cultural treasures and severely disrupted the continuity of scholarly tradition, leading to consequences that resonated for generations. Yet, even in the face of such catastrophic disruption, Islamic civilization demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for survival and adaptation. Scholars who escaped Baghdad fled to other centers of learning, carrying with them precious manuscripts and knowledge that would have otherwise been lost. They found refuge in Egypt, in Anatolia, and in India, re-establishing intellectual communities and continuing their work. Remarkably, within a generation or two, the Mongol conquerors themselves began to convert to Islam, becoming patrons of the very culture they had so violently subdued. The Ilkhanate in Persia and Mesopotamia, and the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, transformed into vibrant centers of Islamic scholarship and art, producing significant achievements in astronomy, mathematics, and the visual arts. The observatory at Maraga in Persia, built by Hulagu himself and directed by the celebrated astronomer Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, stands as a powerful symbol of this transformation, where a conqueror became a benefactor of the civilization he had once helped to devastate. This period offers a profound meditation on the resilience of knowledge itself. Unlike cities or empires, ideas cannot be truly burned. The works of al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Sina, Ibn al-Haytham, and hundreds of other scholars of the Islamic Golden Age survived the Mongol conquests because they had already been copied countless times, distributed across dozens of libraries in numerous cities, and translated into multiple languages. Indeed, many of these intellectual treasures had already made their way to Europe long before the Mongol invasions, where they were being diligently studied in the nascent universities of Paris, Bologna, and Oxford, already beginning to transform European intellectual life. The enduring power of human knowledge, its ability to persist and flourish even through the most devastating historical catastrophes, remains one of the most remarkable testaments to the human spirit. The Great Translation movement of the 12th and 13th centuries, centered in places like Toledo, Sicily, and other crucial points of contact between the Islamic and European worlds, systematically transferred the accumulated knowledge of the Islamic Golden Age into Latin, making it available to European scholars who had previously had no access to it. This transmission had an extraordinary impact, transforming European medicine through the works of Ibn Sina and al-Razi, reshaping European mathematics with the insights of al-Khwarizmi, revolutionizing European philosophy through the writings of al-Kindi, al-Farabi, and Ibn Rushd, and advancing European astronomy with the centuries of refinement and correction provided by Islamic astronomers to ancient Greek models. The Renaissance, that great intellectual and cultural flowering that transformed Europe beginning in the 14th century and laid the foundations of the modern world, was built in significant part on the knowledge preserved, expanded, and transmitted by the scholars of the Islamic Golden Age. Algebra, the mathematical language that underlies virtually all of modern science and technology, was created by al-Khwarizmi in 9th century Baghdad, and the algorithms that run our computers, sort our search results, navigate our routes, and recommend our music carry within their very name the memory of that same scholar. The surgical instruments described by the great Islamic physician al-Zahrawi were used in European hospitals for centuries, and many of them are recognizable in modern surgical practice. Furthermore, the astronomical observations of Islamic scholars were utilized by Copernicus and Kepler as they developed the heliocentric model of the solar system, which ultimately replaced the ancient Greek geocentric model and launched the scientific revolution. One of the most important and perhaps least recognized legacies of the Islamic Golden Age is its contribution to the concept of the university. The madrasa system of formal higher education, which developed in the Islamic world during the 10th and 11th centuries, provided a model for the organization of knowledge into disciplines, the certification of scholars through formal examination, and the systematic transmission of knowledge through teaching, all of which profoundly influenced the development of European universities. The Al-Azhar Mosque University in Cairo, still functioning after more than 1,000 years, serves as a living symbol of this tradition, connecting the Islamic Golden Age directly to the present day. Beyond these tangible contributions lies a deeper, more philosophical legacy, the profound demonstration that knowledge has no nationality, no religion, no race. The scholars of Baghdad, Cordoba, Cairo, and Samarkand proved through their lives and their work that the pursuit of truth is a universal human activity, that wisdom can be found in any tradition and any culture, and that the willingness to learn from others is not weakness but the highest form of intellectual strength. Muslim scholars translated Greek texts, Persian astronomical tables, and Indian mathematics, not because they were compelled to, but because they genuinely believed that all human knowledge was valuable, that the works of Aristotle and Euclid and Brahmagupta contained truths that transcended the cultures that had produced them. This profound generosity of attitude serves as a powerful model for how human civilization might approach knowledge in any era. The enduring presence of the Islamic Golden Age in the world we inhabit today is undeniable. The stars that Islamic astronomers named Aldebaran, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Vega, Altair, Deneb carry their Arabic names in the maps of the night sky that we use even now, a constant reminder that every time we look up at the stars, we are seeing them partly through the eyes of scholars who lived 1,000 years ago. The words that Arabic contributed to the English language, algebra, algorithm, alcohol, almanac, alchemy, cipher, zenith, nadir, coffee, cotton, sugar, magazine, each one is a small fossil of cultural exchange, a reminder that the Islamic Golden Age touched the everyday life of the modern world in ways too numerous and too intimate to fully count. Imagine a lamplit library in medieval Baghdad. Scholars bent over manuscripts in a dozen languages, a civilization that believed, with all its heart and all its considerable intelligence, that the pursuit of knowledge was among the most sacred of human activities. You have traveled far tonight through centuries and continents, through the lives of scholars and merchants and rulers and dreamers, through the rise and transformation of one of history's greatest civilizations. Let the images of Baghdad and Cordoba and Samarkand settle into your dreams, and carry with you the quiet knowledge that the world you wake up in tomorrow was shaped, in ways both large and small, by the extraordinary men and women of the Islamic Golden Age.